All right, I think we're finally live. Sorry for the delay, everyone. My phone was not wanting to cooperate with Google Chrome here to do the live stream, but I think we're up and running. So, welcome to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. I hope you're all having a great weekend here and a good Sunday. And yeah, so thanks so much for joining in, everyone. Thanks for the patience. And I see we already have a lot of people that have shown up here. So, like all the other usual live streams, are going to go for about 2 hours. I am feeling a little congested, so hopefully my voice doesn't give out early, but hopefully we'll go for 2 hours. I'm going to give priority answering to anyone who does a super chat or a super thanks, as well as anyone who's a member. They always get priority answering there. And towards the end, I try and get to a few of the non-member questions. Usually it's pretty packed though, so just be forewarned if you haven't been in one of these live streams before. And sometimes some of the members do also repost some of those non-member questions as well. But anyway, thanks so much for joining in, everyone. And I'll get right into the questions here. I see everyone saying hello. Double Strikes is from the frozen wastes of northern Ohio, not Iowa. And I see B. Mitchell says, greetings all from the frozen wasteland of central Minnesota. So I see a theme here. And Trucking Car Guys in Arizona, so probably a little warmer there. And yeah, thanks for joining in, everyone. I see Vishal, Raphael, Wheatman, Old Cookie says, hello from Norway. That is so awesome, Old Cookie. I'd love to hear some insights on how the EV situation is up there, since it's actually like the majority of sales now. It's kind of like a glimpse into the future in a way. Obviously, Norway is a lot different than the States, but very interesting. I'd love to visit Norway someday. It just seems so beautiful. And yeah, I see Brian also has joined in, and a bunch of others, Kyle, Ludacris Fool, and James. So happy to see so many people were able to make it. I know there's NFL playoff games and stuff. I think there's another one at 9 or at I think it was at 8:15. It's already started. So hopefully it doesn't conflict with too many people's schedules here if you guys are enjoying football here on Sunday too. But all right. Let me see. So I see V Mitchell. Thanks for the advice there. It's sometimes glitchy just with the phone wanting to connect here. And so let me see. First question, I think Spy Harpy says, I saw a Mustang Bullet of your generation in San Jose. Partial plate said one of 50XX. Were there 50 special edition versions of your gen Bullet? I don't think so. The only thing I'm thinking that could potentially be is there is this Steeda Steve McQueen special edition where it was an optional package. Well, it wasn't a thing; it was an aftermarket thing. You could send it to Steeda and they would install a package that some people put a supercharger on with that. Others did a non-supercharged version. I thought they did more than 50, but maybe they only ended up doing 50 of them. I'm not sure. That could be why they're claiming that. Otherwise, I have no idea. Double Strike says, good evening, Matt. Hope you and your family are staying warm today. One word of advice, if I may, absolutely never take your car through the car wash if it's 9 degrees Fahrenheit outside. Trust me. Whew, yeah, hopefully it didn't freeze anything up there too bad for you, Double Strike. But yeah, usually I do the spray it yourself kind of places, but even that I try and avoid, a little bit in the winter, especially, it's at least around here, they coat the roads with salt, and it's just trying to keep a car looking clean is just a complete waste of time, unfortunately. And sometimes I'll have to spray off a press car if I'm doing a review on it, and I don't want it to look completely trashed. But other than that, yeah, I usually just don't even bother with car washes in the winter. And let me see. Let me see. So someone asked, LB Mitchell says, GR Corolla or F Super Duty. Someone had to say it. GR Corolla for me for sure. And I see Jonathan's asking, so I see the original thing, Civic Type R or GR Corolla. That's going to come down to a bunch of different components as far as do you need all-wheel drive? Do you appreciate all-wheel drive? Would you appreciate a bigger backseat and a bigger hatch in the Civic versus what you get in the GR Corolla? What kind of experience are you looking for? Because I just, like I've said in the past, turbo 3-cylinder in the GR Corolla, it gives you a lot more of an old school STI kind of vibe with really being a boosty motor that you have to wait and really ring it out and drive it a little bit harder. Civic Type R is very refined and, just a little bit more evolved. So it doesn't really harken back as much to the old school turbo hot hatch days in a way. That's a good thing in a lot of people's minds. But if you're sentimental and you're someone who, is sad there's no new STI, I think GR Corolla is the spiritual successor to the STI, in my opinion. But So for me, it'd be GR Corolla, but Civic Type R, certainly if you need more backseat space, a bigger hatch, or you just want the extra polish of the interior. It's a far nicer interior in the Civic, and just the polish of the driving dynamics. It's a little more refined. Just the new Civic in general, that platform to me is a little more refined and polished than the Corolla, which came out a few years before it, admittedly. So they're just very different vibes. So it's going to come down to what you prefer. There's no wrong answer there. They're both fantastic cars. I'd happily daily drive either one. But for me, since again, my roots are a Subaru WRX fan, GR Corolla gave me more giddiness than the Civic Type R. But again, both are fantastic. I was able to flog a Type R around Sonoma Raceway back in the fall of 2022. Fantastic car in every way. Also got to take a GR Corolla briefly around track. Also very impressive and fun, but I was definitely able to push the Type R a little harder, I think. Let me see. Ludacris says, notice the haircut. Thank you. Yeah, I finally made the time to get a haircut and get myself looking decent again here. So I'm happy I was able to do that. Let me see. So Jordan says he's very grateful for the update on the Sony car. Yeah, I'm glad that we have the more info on the Sony car. I'm just hoping that they find a way to bump up the charge speed, but even as it is, as long as they price it right, I think, they could have a case there just from the wow factor of it being something from Sony, Cam Jam also, thanks for saying hi. Yavinder says, hey, from Toronto. Thanks for joining in. Let me see. So Ludacris says he also got one as well recently. Nice. It's always feels good to get a fresh haircut. Vishal says, what family car did you have growing up? We had an 05 Chrysler Town and Country for 11 years, served us well for the most part, but had the Chrysler Quirks every now and then. So the first car my family had whenever I was a little kid was a 1988 Ford Tempo, which was very slow. I think it actually had like 88 horsepower. And that thing left us stranded so many times. We tried to do a trip to Detroit, got stranded on the side of the road, had to get towed for that one. It left me and my mom stranded in the parking lot of the grocery store a couple of times. Alternators were always going on it. That was the one thing I remember. It was a horrible car. That actually, my dad before I was born, had a Ford Escort, a 1982 or 84 Ford Escort, I think. And he loved that thing. And, that car treated him well until it got totaled by an 18-wheeler that didn't see him and just basically crushed him up against the side of a bridge, but he survived. And he got pushed up into the side of the bridge, and the truck kept going, and it actually somehow made him tumble end over end and landed on the roof. And I think it was an 84 Escort. Thankfully, he got himself out, was totally fine, which is impressive for a little Econobox from the 80s. But he was fine. So he was really like super sold on Ford after that, and got the Tempo as a family vehicle because his Escort was a two-door. Got the Tempo there, and it was a terrible car, and that burned him from American cars forever after that. So then he switched to a 1997 Subaru Impreza Outback Sport, which was my hand-me-down first car that I had for a little bit. I think it was maybe 6 or 9 months, and then I bought my Legacy GT Spec B as the first car I bought. But that Impreza was great. That thing was a champ. It got hit twice. One was a hit and run, where he got spun like 180 degrees in an intersection. That was wild. That it held up well. It had some rust, like those Subarus like to get around the wheel wells if you're in a salty place like we are. But otherwise, it held up really well. I think we got rid of it, though. We didn't drive a ton, so I think we ended up getting like 120,000 miles out of it or something before it went on to its next owner. And that car, sadly, if you watched my look back, I ran a Carfax on all my old cars, and that Subaru ran a Carfax on it. And I think that was taken off the road sometime around 2014 or 2015. I think it's been since probably crushed, and it seemed like it was okay. I don't know what happened to it that ended up. I think it got over 200,000 miles before it finally kicked the bucket. But so that was, and my dad's been with Subaru ever since, and that's kind of how I got introduced to the Subaru Dark Fan thing, is through going to the Subaru dealers and kind of getting turned on to the Subarus from my dad. But he was a Ford guy until that Tempo was a complete piece of crap. So anyway, Jonah, thank you so much for the first super chat. He says, a bit of a fun question: what is the best book you've read, and what is your favorite book genre, and who is your favorite author? Very good question. I don't know if I actually have a favorite. I do have. So if you, Joan, I can't see if you're. Yeah, you are a member. So I did do a shelf tour. I showed those books over there. As far as my absolute favorite, I it's hard for me to pick a favorite because there's just a lot that I love. As far as genres, I love murder mysteries, especially vintagey murder mysteries. I have also a bunch I didn't actually show on the shelf tour. I have a bunch of old books here. Raymond Chandler is one of my favorite authors. So all the Sam Spade books and Philip Marlowe, all that kind of stuff are some of my favorite old stuff. But like I said in the shelf tour, the Walter Mosley books, he has a murder mystery series with a detective called Easy Rollins, and those are more modern. They were written, I believe they started in the 90s, and I have the whole collection of them up there. They're all so good, fantastic. So I'd say those are some of my favorites that I've read through, but there's so many. It's really hard for me to pick an absolute all-time favorite. Yeah, those are probably the top ones though, in my opinion. So yeah, thanks for the fun question, Joan. I appreciate it. And definitely check out that shelf tour. I don't think I show them in super deep detail, but if you want to see a closer look at those, you can check that out in that video. Okay, I see your follow-up. So you saw the shelf tour. I noticed the books and was curious. Thanks for the recommendations. Yeah, absolutely. If you like murder mysteries, they're all very good. Definitely a little raunchy for those newer ones. They kind of, modernized and kind of given them, I think, in my opinion, a more accurate representation of, like a film noir kind of, book series that was kind of, filtered out a little bit with the older stuff that was actually written in the 40s and the 50s, where they kind of, weren't able to be quite as blunt as they are now, so I think that's why it's kind of fun to, get a more accurate perspective, that yes, people did actually swear in the 40s and the 50s and 60s and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so I'm always happy to give a recommendation because all the Walter Mosley stuff is fantastic. He's an excellent writer. And he's actually had some TV shows now. I think he was the writer for Snowfall on FX, and I think he's done one or two other shows too. And actually, the first in the Walter Mosley series, sorry for going on a tangent here, but the first one was called Devil in a Blue Dress, and that was actually in the 90s made into a movie with Denzel Washington playing the lead character. I've actually never watched it, believe it or not. It was never available to rent anywhere, so I was never able to track it down. But they even made it into a movie, so it must be pretty decent if they got a movie deal out of it. So definitely recommend. But thanks so much for the fun question, Jonah. And getting back to the other member questions here, let me see. Two says, hey guys, the karate chop guy was asleep tonight. Clarkson voice. Some say, actually, I'll let Matt make that one up about the karate chop guy. Yeah, I'm not as quick with those jokes as you are, too. You definitely have a talent for your off the wall humor there. It's always appreciated. Thanks for joining in too. And Joe says he's leaving. He loves football. Sounds good. Totally don't blame you. Probably much more exciting than this anyway. Cam Jam says, what do you feel about the Mazda 3 hatch manual current gen versus previous? So it's funny you mentioned the Mazda 3 hatches. Manual ones, I've only driven them a few times. Actually, I only drove the manual once, and it was like a 15-minute drive loop on the Mazda 3 program back in 2019. And Mazda's never had any in the fleets, at least around here. I have never seen another manual one. I think there was someone in I think Maryland that has offered one to me. I just haven't had a chance to go down there and drive it. But I'm hoping to review one at some point again. But if you're not interested in the manual version, or if you're open to the automatic, and I think I may do a used car value bargain kind of video on this, although it's a spoiler because there's only 82 people here, so I guess I'm not ruining the view count on the future video too much. But Mazda 3 turbo hatches, like 2021s, when this first came out just a couple of years ago, 250 horsepower, 200 or 320 pound-feet of torque, all-wheel drive. I mean, yes, it only has a 6-speed torque converter automatic, but a really nice car. Those things were like 33, 35 grand just like 2 or 3 years ago. And I just looked just because I still am keeping up on GR Corolla prices to see if they're coming down, which by the way, they are. They're in the like mid 30s now for some of the used ones for the cores. Clearly I still would love to have a GR Corolla. So I'm just keeping an eye on prices just to see what happens. But anyway, And then I was like, oh wait, for some reason it clicked Mazda 3 Turbo. I was like, let's just see, what those are going for. They're like, I mean, even like like no accident, like clean Carfax ones, they're going with a turbo. There are some of them are like 23 or 24 grand, and these are all like 50,000 miles and under. Like, and there's like, you can get like nice ones, like in the soul red color and stuff for 25 tops. And that is, like 10 grand off of what they were new just a couple of years ago. And that now makes them cheaper, at least from what I've seen, cheaper than like a Veloster N, cheaper than a bunch of stuff. And yes, it's not as dynamic, but throw some sportier tires on it, put an exhaust on it to make it sound better because there's not much sound. I was actually even just on YouTube here, just looking at sound clip videos for people that have put aftermarket exhaust on Mazda 3 turbos, just because I'm like, like that could be a fun little thing. If I was going to do something different or, something different than the Bullet, I always just like having like a running list of like goodbyes in case I ever, want to swap cars or something, or need to swap cars. Like I've talked about in the past with potentially getting rid of the Bullet someday. Just if I have to, not because I don't want to, but anyway, I won't get into that again. But so, yes, Mazda 3 turbos, if you are flexible with, dealing with a 6-speed automatic, I mean, I think there's a lot of car. It's so luxurious still, not a ton of space, as far as hatchbacks goes. I mean, it's not a huge hatch. Backseat space is pretty small, but if you don't care about those things that much, 23 to 25 grand for those, probably the best enthusiast deal that I can think of off the top of my head right now, just because they've depreciated so fast. I don't know why Mazdas drop like rocks. It's unfortunate if you bought them new, but for used buyers, man, they are insanely good deals. Anyway, another tangent, apologize, but yes, Mazda 3s, I really like them, and they've always been top pick in my mind. James says, do you think Ford will bring back the GT350 for the S650 generation, possibly with a newer version of the Voodoo engine? The way they made it seem, I mean, maybe it's just a marketing play, but they made it seem like the Voodoo was really done with the GT350, and they wanted to keep that car special. So I don't think they're going to do that. I think Dark Horse is in my opinion, might be it outside of a Shelby GT500 or something, which I'm assuming they'll do just because those are, just so sought after and in such demand that I think they'll probably, do a supercharged version, even if it's just a copy and paste of, the S550 GT500. But I think they'll do that. I still think that they're going to do an SVO since they're leaning into the Fox body thing. I think doing a higher performing version of the EcoBoost and bringing back the manual for the EcoBoost with the SVO could be just based on the Fox body thing that they're leaning into. My bet is that's the direction you're going to go with a new generation special edition. I still don't think we're going to get a Bullet unless they do some type of collaboration with the new movie, because there is a new Bullet movie coming out. I think Steven Spielberg's set to do it because he's a big Bullet fan. And I think Bradley Cooper was cast as Frank Bullet in the movie. And I think once the strikes happened, it kind of got put on hold. Hopefully it's going to come, back and actually happen. Because I think the only thing is I think that one's supposed to be set in the 60s still, and they're not going to like do a modern thing, as far as the time period. So they may just, get another 68 and just stick to that or something. But if, there's some way to do some type of modern thing, I think that, Ford could be in for that. And now that we see the new Dodge Charger, I wasn't able to cover it in the weekly update, unfortunately, but that new Dodge Charger looks like the 68 Charger. And that's why if you follow me on Instagram, my Instagram story, I said I'd love to have the new Charger lined up with that, with the Bullet there. And so maybe if there's a new S650 Bullet and then you can get the Charger, maybe they'll do a fun little modern take if Dodge and Ford could actually collaborate, which I highly doubt, but that would be fun. But yeah, I think that GT350 is probably done. I think that motor is probably done. It just, I think emissions wise, that one might be a little bit tougher, naturally aspirated. Not like the supercharged makes it any better, but I don't know. I feel like they made it seem like that motor was done. But we'll see. Anyway, see, we're getting some more, another super chat here. Thank you so much, Golden Trucker, for the super chat. He says, after 1 year and 100x calls a week ago, I got an FL5 Type R for MSRP, no add-ons. huge congrats. That's awesome. And kudos to you for not giving into the markups and, sticking to your guns there and getting one at MSRP. That's awesome. He said, also, I have a 21 GT Mustang 08 GX 470 ES 330 19 Tundra SR5 4x4 18,000 miles. Stop paying over MSRP, guys. Wait, search, stop. 100% totally agree. Kudos to you and great advice for sure. And that's awesome. So yes, thanks for the super chat and kudos to you. I hope you enjoy that type art of the full list. And also leave a comment if you want of the dealer that you got the MSRP deal from, if you don't mind. Just I love promoting good dealers that are selling these cars at sticker, and I like promoting that because all you ever hear is everyone complaining about it. Oh, well, the dealer around the block from me, they're charging 15 grand over. So they're all 15 grand over all around the country. It's like, no, get in the car, do a road trip, get out of your comfort zone, get out of your area, ditch all your crappy local dealers and go where you need to go to get it at sticker. I'd rather, pay $1,000 for a flight across the country than give that $1,000 to a greedy dealer, So like, and you have a fun road trip, on the way back if it's out of town too. I love that. So, okay, it says Faulkner, Honda. So there you go. If anyone wants an MSRP Type R and you're willing to wait, sounds like, you just get on the list and hopefully they'll be able to be one that. That's awesome, Golden Trucker. Huge congrats, and I hope you love that vehicle. He says it's in Harrisburg. Nice, so not too far here from Pittsburgh. That's great to hear, and good that there's at least one decent Honda dealer in the Pennsylvania region here. So anyway, yeah, awesome. Thanks so much for the super chat, Golden Trucker. All right, let me see. Getting back to the other member questions here. Oh, we got another super chat in. Thanks so much, Stud Muffin, for another super chat. He says, how do you feel about resto mods and would you ever own one? Something like a 60s muscle car with a modern engine. For me, I like old cars because they're old. I know I can see the appeal of a resto mod, but for me, if I'm buying an old car, I want a time machine. I want the experience of what it was like back then. If I wanted a modern experience, I'd go with a modern car. I'm not the type that wants the old looks. If I want to have a modern like 5.0, for example, it always drives me crazy. I mean, everyone's free to do whatever they want, but whenever I see like a really nice 68 dark Highland green fastback Mustang, and then they threw a new 5.0 motor in it, I'm sure it's a cool experience. But for me, if I want a 5.0 Bullet, I'll just go buy the brand new one, which is safer, faster, better performing in every single way, instead of trying to take something that's crappy, because it is, and trying to, polish a turd as far as handling dynamics goes and driving dynamics. I'd rather just get the new car. So for me, like if I were to ever have the money someday, and they're getting so expensive, but if I ever could get, for example, a 68 Mustang fastback, still one of my dream cars, I would want drum brakes. I would want, the original 390 engine in that car. I'd want, everything original as best as I possibly could. I mean, I can see the case to be made for brake upgrades, at least just from a safety standpoint, since every modern car can stop faster than you can. So, I can kind of see that. And that is probably the only thing I would compromise on, that. And if it's an older car that doesn't have seat belts, I'd definitely want to add seat belts, at least lap belts, to a super old, like 40s and 50s stuff that doesn't have lap belts. I'd put those in. But aside from that, I don't love all the rest of mod stuff personally. I see the appeal though. If you want the old looks and the modern mechanicals, it makes sense. But for me, it just ruins the experience of what I want out of a classic car. So, thanks for the super chat. I appreciate it. And I know there's going to be, I'm sure that's probably an unpopular opinion because I know resto mods are very popular, but I think for me, it's got to be original. Let me see other questions here. So, thanks for joining in, Rafi. And Raphael says 6 degrees here, -3 wind chill. Man, yeah, I think it's 13 degrees right now, it says. And it was pretty windy today, too, which not great. But we'll get through it. And, only a couple more months and hopefully I'll have warmer weather here. And Rafi says, hope you're doing well. I'm doing well, aside from, because I got a little bit of a congestion thing going on here, but otherwise doing well. Hope you're doing well too, Rafi. Zachary says, hey, Matt, my mom's 2015 Kia Sorento is 167,000 miles and it's doing well, just minor wear and tear. Kia and Hyundai really up their build quality and reliability after 2011. I agree. It seems like there's a lot of really good ones out there, especially if you pick the right model years and the right, vehicles and the right engines and stuff. I have heard some horror stories as well of Hyundais and Kias. But I mean, I've heard horror stories from most car companies, to be totally honest, outside of really, I don't really hear much about Toyota and Honda, having terrible experiences. But, most of the other car companies, there's always someone that says, "Oh, that's a piece of junk." So that's something, you can be applying to most car brands. They're going to have a few duds every once in a while, but yeah, I mean, your mom's Kia clearly shows they can put together a car really well in many cases. I mean, there's been even a Hyundai Elantra. One lady drove 1,000,000 miles in it, and Hyundai gave her a new one. So I mean, they certainly have the potential to go the distance for many people. So I'm great to hear that hers is treating her well, and hope it continues to treat her well for a long time. Thanks for weighing in there with that, Zachary. Trenton Car Gas says, I feel you there with the automatic car washes. That's why I hand wash my cars. Yeah, that would really be brutal, though, in this weather for sure. Let me see. Jordan says, did Apple give up on their car, or was that just a rumor? From what I've heard, Apple keeps getting people poached from their program to be pulled into other EV startups and stuff. I think the last I read sometime earlier last year was that they've kind of shelved the idea and kind of just focused on the new CarPlay experience instead. And there has been some talk of them just buying a car company, one of these struggling startups that, needs cash. We all know Apple's got plenty of it. So, if, for example, Lucid, there's still some question about if they're going to financially make it. And Lucid, I think could align pretty well with Apple as far as, if Lucid needs a savior in the 11th hour, you have Apple roll in and, buy the brand or something like that. I think there's rumors of like Apple buying Peloton, so there's some of this stuff where maybe we are going to see Apple start buying a bunch of stuff up this year. And I think that could be the faster track to getting a car on the road. If they want to do something like that, you can take, like Lucid's tech or one of these other companies and, just get the interior and make it Apple-fied and, just kind of go from there. So maybe something like that. As far as their own car, I mean, I keep hearing dates get pushed back further and further. I think there's so many other things that they're rather focus on right now. They're working on trying to figure out foldable iPhones that don't fall too far behind that curve and, a bunch of other stuff. So I feel like that's probably, I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but if it is, it's going to be a long time. So I wouldn't even keep that on the horizon, honestly. If they surprise us in 2028 or something, then that'd be great. But I definitely wouldn't hold your breath for that. Tim says, drove the ISF today. I'm going to buy it. He sent me a message. I think was it last week or something about the ISF there. And so that's awesome. Congrats on going for it there. ISF is a really solid buy. I can't imagine those really depreciating much more. It's going to be collectible. It's, because especially now we know there's no new ISF. It's just the IS 500. That's all we're getting, I'm pretty sure, unless they surprise us. But it's going to be the one and only ISF, and that's going to be desirable and already is, I think. So I think that's a great pickup, Tim, and congrats. It's going to be a really fun car to own too. So great buy, and glad it worked out for you, Tim. Let me see. So, all right. Sorry, I just missed the super chat. Tom, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, imagine something fun, likely giving the SVO Mustang a Tremec manual, making it into a mini dark horse. That would be really cool if they did the Tremec. I didn't even consider the idea of a Tremec and an EcoBoost. That would definitely probably improve the experience for sure. Although, since people are just I'm sure there's some people that are still desperate for a manual EcoBoost. So I'm sure they'd take anything, but that would be a definitely good way to sweeten the deal if you put the Tremec in the SVO. That would be awesome. I like the idea. Thanks for the super chat there, Tom. And hopefully someone from Ford's listening in, although I highly doubt it. And let me see, getting back to the other member questions here. Where was I? B. Mitchell said, Mom had an 82 Escort wagon built like a mini tank. Tempo, not so much. Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think part of it is also the Tempo, I don't think was really a world car, whereas that Escort was built, I think it was originally engineered in the UK, if I'm not mistaken, and solid, international car. And, it's interesting. I also see Luke is asking, are you an only child? I just saw right while we're talking about family history and stuff. I'm not an only child. I have a sister who's a little bit younger than me, and she's the one who does all the rolling shots that you see in the car reviews. So she's sitting in the passenger seat in Beth's Mach-E usually. just hanging out the window there, doing those nice, pretty rolling shots you see in the car reviews. And she's been doing that with me since I started doing car reviews. So back in 2012, 2011, all these years, she's still, thankfully, even though now she's married and has a career and all that. And she still just today came over and we did rolling shots in the 2 press cars that I have here this week. And so, yeah, and always been really close with her. I'm really grateful I had her, because she's always been a really fun friend to have here all these years. So, but yeah, just the 2 of us, and wouldn't have it any other way, I don't think. Let me see. Italian Ice 678. Thank you so much for the super chat. He says, "Hey Matt, hope you and family are well. Still have that '05 Matrix though. It's in New York." That's awesome. Yeah, thanks for the super chat, and I remember you sent me an email. I think it was last year, and I'm hoping. I have a growing list of reasons to go to New York to do some car reviews. I've got a bunch of opportunities, and I've actually, even one of the press fleet companies that I get some of my GM stuff from comes from New York, and they're like, "Hey, like, we know you can't get BMWs and you can't get like Land Rovers and Jaguars and stuff like that. They're like, if you come to New York, we could probably set you up with a couple of those if you want to, stay here for a few days. Then you can knock out a bunch of those reviews that I usually can't get my hands on." So I'm trying to figure it out. I need to find a place to stay in New York that's not like insanely expensive, and then that's still close enough to the city, and be able to maybe set up base for a week or something and just do a ton of New York reviews. I have some really sweet opportunities in New York, and also the '05 Matrix is another like kind of getting back to like I've been saying at the beginning of this year here, I want to do more affordable stuff, more, unique stuff, and not just all the new stuff that everyone else does. And I need to differentiate this channel from the zillions of other channels that, all get press cars and all, are doing all the new cars all the time. I need to do more used stuff. So I'd love to do the '05 Matrix. It'd be such a cool, fun little car to review. So I'm hoping I can do a trip to New York here this year at some point. So I'd still have your email, and I will definitely send you a message here once I'm able to get around to it. And I'm hoping I'm really going to try my hardest to like make time for more privately owned vehicles, and just doing some more older stuff here this year. And I definitely did, I think, more last year than I did the year before, but I got to keep stepping that up more and more and more, and just getting the bullet and drive out to meet all you awesome people that have offered me your awesome cars. So I'm hoping to get there. But thank you so much for the super chat again, Italian Ice, and hope you enjoy the rest of the live stream here as well. And let me see. So other questions. Where was I here from the members? So I'll try and get caught up because I know I'm lagging behind here. Okay, so Ludicrous Wolf has been trying to finally buy a car, but it feels like things have been tailor-made to make it difficult. Recent cars I visited weren't ready. Many others are out of state and interest rates are so high. If you have any advice or words of encouragement, can you give them to me? Absolutely. There is certainly some improvement that I've been seeing in the car market. Like I just mentioned, with the Mazda 3 turbos dropping, I think used prices are finally starting to loosen up a little bit, which is good to see. I'm also starting to see more incentives out there if you're shopping new cars. I've been seeing, Hyundai has been doing 0% financing on some stuff, and there's really been more and more incentivizing with those interest rates. Because I think a lot of people these days are okay paying closer to sticker now after all the stuff of the past few years. I think, people are less likely to expect a huge discount right now, but they are not going to go for a high interest rate, most people. And so I think the manufacturers are realizing that, so they're pouring on incentives on the finance side to make that more appealing, so people aren't walking out once they get into the finance room and are seeing 6, 7, 8% interest rates. That's I know from experience with my brother-in-law that's a car salesman. He's like, he's like, people are super excited about the deal, they're excited about the car, and then they go back and then they hear from the finance guy and then they're gone because they're just like, they're not going to do it. And so I would say, it comes down to how flexible you are as far as, if you're buying new, buy from a brand that's going to give you a good rate. If you're buying used, I would say, try and find one of those good used values of something that has depreciated. That's, if you're not looking for something super rare or super desirable, shop around. And again, don't, if you're on Auto Trader or something like that, don't look in a 50-mile radius, look nationwide, or however far you're able to go. I know not everyone has the free time to take a weekend road trip or something, but if you, have a little bit of free time, expand that search out nationwide, and find the car across the country that's the cheapest deal, or whatever. Find the good deal that way, and work out all the numbers ahead of time. Obviously, make sure you're basically just one signature away from finalizing that deal before you make the trip, obviously. But get that all set, and then make sure you test drive and make sure it's all good if it's used. But otherwise, that's basically it. But I would just say that if you are dealing with a brand that doesn't have incentivized rates, then I would say don't buy unless you're going to pay cash, because you don't want to get hosed on an interest rate. And I mean, yes, you might be able to refinance down the road, but who knows how long the rates are going to stay high. I mean, I think the Fed's saying they want to bring down rates a little bit here this year, but then I think inflation also ticked up just a tiny bit from its recent decline that it's had, so that might make them nervous and keep stuff higher for longer. So I wouldn't bank on lower rates anytime soon. So, either go with a car company that has the incentivized rates, or try and pay cash if that's an option for you. And if it's not, then I would try and hold off on buying a car. Don't get locked into a high interest rate, because it's just, you're going to get, killed and be upside down on the loan and everything else if you don't put a ton of money down and stuff. It's just, a bad combo, and a bunch of people are doing it. And, I hope it doesn't, make anyone have too rough of a situation down the road. But I mean, there's a lot of people who are upside down. And honestly, even like our Mach-E just tanked in value. Thankfully, that's like a lease with the Ford option plan that we did. But so we can just dump it after the 4-year period, and Ford takes it back, and we don't have to, but if I was buying that car, I mean, it was a $50,000 car that's now worth $32,000. Obviously we've paid payments on it, so we don't owe 50. But it's like, we would be underwater right now if I hadn't done the lease on that. So, but there's a lot of people that just, I mean, that was just because of the EV thing dropping like a rock. But as far as, interest rates, that can also kind of slow down the paying stuff down. So I would just avoid that. But that's really the only advice I can give. I would just say it's still not a great time to buy a car. So if you can hold off, don't buy one, unless, again, you can lock in a really good interest rate. That's probably the best advice I can give. And best of luck to you. I know it can be a giant pain. So hopefully it works out. And Hugo, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, hey, man, hope everything is all good. Can we just focus on how Stellantis is killing the Dodge brand? No more V8s. What's next? Inline 4 Durangos. I think Durango, the next step will probably be, replacing the V8 with the Hurricane 6 like they're doing with all the other V8 stuff. And, we will see how the Hurricane 6 is. I will be driving the new Ram here relatively soon, and be trying out that Hurricane 6 in that. I haven't tested it in the Wagoneer. I know it's been in that for about a year or so already, but we will see how the market responds to that. And I think it's just, the problem with Dodge is they just have their hands tied. They're behind the ball on the CAFE emissions fleet averages. They're in a worse position than Ford and GM, who've been churning out EVs all these years, and so they're able to kind of keep the V8s around more than Stellantis is. So that's, Dodge just kind of chose a different strategy. Ford and Chevy were like, let's do the EVs and the gas guzzlers at the same time. Dodge was like, let's go all gas guzzlers and rah, let's drive off the cliff. And so they drove off the cliff, and now we're in free fall, and now they're paying for it by having to, neuter everything and throw the V8s out. It's just different strategies, and, Dodge had all the hype for the past couple of years as a result. And I mean, Challenger and Charger went out, in a blaze of glory, and that's fine, but it's just unfortunate they didn't have, a couple EVs to help out their averages and allow them to keep the gas guzzlers around. Because that's what Ford said in an interview with one of the Mustang executives. They were like, the Mach-E subsidizes the V8 Mustang in a lot of ways. They're like, the more Mach-Es we sell, the more gas guzzler Mustangs we can sell as well. And that was kind of not one of the biggest reasons of getting the Mach-E, but that was certainly a perk for us getting the Mach-E, is I am actually supporting the gas powered Mustangs by helping Ford's fleet average with a Mach-E purchase, So again, I'm not worried about Ford. I'm not going to help them out for sure on my own account, but it was just, a good feeling that, hey, I'm actually helping keep the V8s around in a roundabout way. But yeah, it's a shame that the V8's not going to be around, most likely. I mean, I don't think that's been 100% confirmed that it's gone forever. But as far as the Hemis, obviously they're saying those are going away. But I never know with Dodge, because they say one thing and then they do something else. I mean, they said, oh, Charger's going to be electric only, and then now we're seeing there's going to probably be a 6-cylinder version and a gas powered Charger. So I still don't know up from down with Dodge. So maybe they'll surprise us, maybe they won't. I don't know. But thanks so much for the super chat, Hugo. And yeah, we will see how Dodge continues to evolve here. I just would like to see more from Chrysler because literally they just have the Pacifica now, and it's a one car brand. Never a good look. Anyway, getting back to the other member questions here. Let me see. Scrolling back up. So Truck and Car Guy says, been meaning to get a few books of my own, just trying to get caught up on bills and such first. Yeah, no, I mean, I even like these Walter Mosley books that I love. I haven't read the newest ones still because I'm always so busy. I used to read on planes a bunch, but now I'm even on planes, I can't relax. I'm always on my laptop editing a video and frantically working, trying to get caught up on all that. And so I don't even, everyone else is sitting there watching their movies on the flight and all that, reading books and all that. And I'm so jealous because I'm always sitting there with my noise canceling headphones on, editing as much as I possibly can. But yeah, one of these days I'll be able to get caught up on all the books and movies and stuff I want to see too. And let me see. Double Strike says, Matt, since I didn't get to ask in December, are you in the camp that believes Die Hard is the greatest Christmas movie of all time? I'm gonna probably upset you here, Double Strike. I have never seen Die Hard. There's a bunch of movies I could probably like just imagine the collective groan as I just said that. But there's a bunch of like epic movie genres that I have never like got around to watching. Like Die Hard, I wasn't allowed to see that as a kid, and I never went back as an adult and watched that. There's a bunch of I've never seen Indiana Jones. I've never actually managed to stay awake. This will also probably be an unpopular opinion. I've tried watching the first Star Wars and the first Harry Potter. I fell asleep like halfway through both of the first of those movies and never saw the rest of those series. And there's probably a couple others that people would probably fall out of their chairs if I said I've never seen, but I can't think of any of the other ones. But those are a few there to make everyone probably very upset. So yes, I've never seen Die Hard, so I can't weigh in on that. Greatest Christmas movie of all time for me. Yeah, I don't know if there's 100%, but I think probably one of my top ones is Home Alone 2 is probably one of my favorites, being a 90s kid. But Trunk Car Guy is saying, okay, I see, talking about Ludacris there, it's saying to keep at it. And yeah, just definitely try and avoid the markups for sure. That's great advice too. And Jonas says, use CX-5s are great budget family vehicles. A bunch can be found for low to mid 20s in good condition and low miles. Absolutely. 100% agree. That's another excellent buy. CX-5, excuse me, CX-5 is still, in my opinion, the best driving of everything in that segment. And, you have to deal with the controller wheel, which not everyone loves. But if you go for a newer one, they do have the touch enabled screen here. I think they introduced last year. But I mean, CX-5s, yeah, it's insane. They drop so fast, but they are really reliable. They are really solid. They're fantastic. They're competitive in every way. And like I said, it's actually my favorite in the segment still, I think. And I don't know why they drop so fast. So I guess it's just, that's the only downside is resale sucks on them. But aside from that, yeah, absolutely best. If you're going to buy it and keep it a long time, you're not worried about flipping it in a couple of years. CX-5's 100%. That is the play. If you want a good driving budget family vehicle all day, every day, if you want an SUV, CX-5 is, the easy choice. I totally agree, Jonah. 2 says, Clarkson voice, someone say his vape is filled with E85 and nitrous, and that contrary to popular belief, Matt is his alter ego where he's married and has a car review channel. All we know is he's Super Darks fan. It is funny. Every once in a while, someone comments like, this looks a lot like that Subaru guy. And I know there's a few, regular commenters that comment that just for fun, but there's been a couple of like people that I don't recognize their usernames that have like commented that on like old videos or like some of the newer stuff. They're like, is this that Subaru guy? And it's just crazy. It's definitely, I wish that I would have set up the channel better to not have to make that switch, but it's been now, I did that switch in 2017. So we're coming up on actually almost 7 years since I changed the channel name, which is crazy to actually think about that. But, and there's still so many people that are like, they don't actually know that I made that switch. It's definitely wild. And Stud Muffin, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, pick one manufacturer that you would become the CEO of, and then how would you revive the company? Well, if it's a company that is like a project that I need to fix, I mean, I don't know, because all the companies that I love are doing pretty well. I mean, but I would probably say, I mean, I think Subaru has a lot of potential, but I think Subaru is one of the top companies where they're making a lot of head scratching decisions that I would, yeah, I think I'd love to take over as CEO and, just churn out a Baja, hack the back end off of an Outback or an Ascent or both even, do Baja and Baja XL or something. And, just, I don't know why they're not doing it. The Maverick and even the Santa Cruz and stuff, like easy money printer, even if it just like does mediocre in sales, you already have the development work done with the Outback, just, it's not, like, it can't be that hard, but so it's stuff like that, low hanging fruit. There's obviously, I would get rid of the body cladding on the WRX and things like that. But I mean, I think that Subaru, they're doing really well. And I think for the masses, it is mostly the right plays for just increasing that brand volume and, selling out in a lot of ways. Not that that's bad. I mean, they're laughing all the way to the bank. So, I mean, it works for them. And if your goal is to, grow a company and make it thrive, I think they're doing the right thing for the most part. But I think, they're just missing the ball with some of that stuff, like the Baja, like offering a WRX hatch. It still is roughly based on the Impreza. It can't be that hard to amp up the Impreza hatch that has already been, done with the R&D work, or bring over the Lavorg that's in Australia. Like, again, these are cars that have already been built. All the development work is mostly done. This shouldn't be a big ask, and yet we're not getting this stuff that would just be nice additions that would make them extra money. So I think Subaru is one of the ones I'm probably most passionate about. I also I really feel for Mitsubishi because, the new Outlander, I just, did the plug-in hybrid version. Super impressive, super nice interior. They got a 10-year warranty on them. They're really trying their hardest with that new Outlander. And, I just don't know what the holdup is as far as why they're so slow to update everything else, especially now with this Nissan partnership. Take everything in the Nissan catalog if they're allowed to and slap Mitsubishi badges on it, put your own styling spin on it. And I mean, they could have a brand new large, lineup, or even, I mean, just a couple more cars. Instead, right now we got the Mirage, which is, an embarrassment, honestly, for the company, I think, at this point. And then you have, everything else that's ancient as well outside of that Outlander. And it's no wonder Mitsubishi dealers only stock Outlanders now, because the other stuff just doesn't compete anymore. And so I think I'd love to see Mitsubishi get back to their glory days. So I think that could be another one that I'd love to, start off with the 3000 GT, make a modern version of that based on a, Z. If you can, again, steal parts from Nissan, try and hack up a Q50, Red Sport maybe for that, make it an all-wheel drive system. And make a new 3000 GT. And I mean, the possibilities are endless, but I'd say Mitsubishi is probably another one. I think Nissan also, I could, probably, in my opinion, again, being an armchair product planner over here, I think I could definitely, again, some low hanging fruit for Nissan and Infiniti. Why they haven't made, done the Lexus thing. I mean, Lexus does a little more unique than this. So this is short selling Lexus a bit, but, why not just do the same thing of slapping, a nicer interior and nicer styling onto every Nissan product and have a big Infiniti lineup. Instead, again, they got a handful of products that are, pretty dated for the most part. And it's just another easy win, in my opinion. They're not doing it. I don't know. I'm guessing there's a good reason why behind the scenes, but as an outsider looking in, it's just like, what are you doing, Infiniti? Like, this isn't like, just put Infiniti badges on them and, leather and, just make them nicer. It's, I don't know. I'm sure it's an oversimplified viewpoint and there's more to it, but those are probably the top companies. Thanks for the fun question there, Stud Muffin. Sandeep, thank you so much for the super chat. He says 2024 Raptor R or 2024 TRX. Have TRX right now, thinking R. So obviously you can watch my Raptor R review. I do compare it to the TRX a lot there. And I can, so that's going to be the better video to watch as far as my in the moment driving the Raptor R, my thoughts of how it compares to the TRX. But beyond that video, I'm assuming you've already watched that video, I would say, to me, I still like the TRX more from a fun standpoint because I like supercharger whine. If you don't care about that, Raptor R is probably the better truck, especially now getting the extra horsepower for 2024. And just the fact that, it's, I think it is a little bit better in certain aspects, especially if you're going off road. I feel like the Raptor is still a little bit better from a suspension standpoint than the TRX. I'm not an off-roader, so I can't comment. It's just kind of what I've seen and heard elsewhere. But if it were me, between one or the other, I would stick to TRX just because the supercharger line, to be to be totally honest. If that doesn't bother you or you don't care about that, then I would say Raptor R is probably, slightly better in most of the other ways. So hopefully that helps you a little bit. But for me, I just stick with that TRX, especially if you like it and you enjoy it. Again, with the interest rates being crap now, I don't know if you're going to pay cash or finance, but especially if you're, not paying cash and you have a better rate on a TRX, I would just stick to the TRX, to be totally honest. And thank you so much again for the super chat. And Kevin, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, why are front wheel drive cars limited to around 300 horsepower? I mean, they don't have to be. There are some. I think there were some in the past. I'm trying to think of the last thing that was more than, 300 odd horsepower. It is rare though, and I think the reason why is that once you get beyond that horsepower level, it's just hard to put the power down. I mean, I even was talking about this in my week with the Type R video, where even on rain, I could not put power down on the Type R. It just spun and spun and spun. I mean, they even tried. They put 265s in the all around on that Civic Type R. I mean, beefy tires for a hot hatch, and it still just spins. And so that's kind of the problem, is you get to a point where if you want to burn out machine, great, but most people, especially these days, for the bragging rights of, oh well, it's the fastest lap around blah blah blah, and it's does the fastest 0 to 60 and this, that, and the other. I think anything over 300 horsepower is, unless we get better tire technology that has the ability to hook up better, I think it's just going to be a smoke show, and you're just going to be burning out everywhere you go once you're beyond that. And as you can see that whenever you see all the aftermarket stuff, I mean, there's plenty of cars out there that are all these boosted Honda Civics we've seen for decades with over 300 horsepower and stuff. It's, you can do it, but if you've ever driven, I've driven some modified stuff with over 300 horsepower front wheel drive. It's just torque steer city, and you're just all over the place, and it's fun in its own way, but it's just kind of a mess. And so from a manufacturer standpoint, they don't want it to be a mess typically, with a few exceptions. I think Sonata N-Line and Kia K5 GT, they're not even, well, I think they are, yeah, right around 300 horsepower, and those don't have limited slip diffs. I mean, those cars, it's just like, it's hilarious how it just does not put power down. And you can see that in my reviews of those videos if you want. But so it just gets to a point where manufacturers can't be like, okay, well, this isn't safe anymore. This isn't what you expect from an OEM, brand new manufacturer effort. And so I think that's why, if it just doesn't meet their quality tests and their safety tests and all that, then it's just, they got to, dial back the power or add all-wheel drive, and I think that's kind of, the way to go about it. That's why you see GTIs. You can boost the GTI to, 1,000 horsepower if you want, but it's just going to be a mess. And so that's why everyone starts with a Golf R if you're going to do some kind of high horsepower build anyway. Then you got that all-wheel drive traction, so you actually go faster, which is your idea and your point. I'm assuming if you're doing high horsepower, is you want to go faster. And I think it gets to a certain point where you just don't you don't achieve that goal, and it's just kind of working against you at that point. So I think that's probably the main reason why. But great question, Kevin, and thanks so much for asking that. And that's also, that super chat reminds me something I wanted to kind of float with all of you here in the live streams while we have over 100 people now watching. I'm curious what you guys think about me taking little snippets of these live streams and uploading them as separate videos, because with a 2-hour-long live stream, I think there's so much good discussion that we have in here, but I think it gets lost for people who aren't watching this live and don't have 2 hours to kill to just sit around and watch it sometime during the week. I think there's so many fun discussions we have in here that get lost. And like Kevin's question is a great question that I think would do really well in a standalone video. I'm curious, how you guys would feel about me doing those, and kind of maybe even potentially getting up to like a daily upload kind of thing, where I always do the car reviews and always do the weekly updates, but on the off days, maybe post a little 5-minute clip of me answering Kevin's question. And I think stuff like that could be kind of an interesting way to kind of highlight the highlights of these live streams for everyone else that can't make these and don't have the time to sit through to get to the good stuff. And it's obviously fun all the way through, in my opinion at least, and hopefully for most of you as well, for the whole 2 hours. But for people that don't have that time flexibility, I think it'll be really fun. And I see Vincent saying do it shorts, drive traffic, no pun intended. Yeah, and I'm not sure if I would do them as shorts in particular. I may yeah, if I can crop this down to a vertical thing and just have the question, and I could do them as shorts potentially. I feel like some of those are even kind of long-winded for shorts, but just doing them as shorter little videos. But yeah, I see Mike says good idea. Same with Jazz. Okay, great. Yeah, I'm so glad that you guys like it. All right. Thanks so much. I know a lot of other channels, not really car channels, but other channels, on YouTube have done that, and it seems like it's been a pretty popular thing. So that might be something I'll do. So thanks so much for the great feedback there. I appreciate it. And that gave me the push I needed. I think I will try and start doing that here. And maybe even this week if I have a little bit of free time. So thanks so much, everyone, for chiming in with that. And getting back to the other member questions here. Where was I? So I know we're way behind. I apologize for all the members that were asking questions here. All right. Almost caught up. So Old Cookie says EVs are the way to go in Norway. Parking garages are mandated to allow for people to install chargers if it's requested. So most people already have or can get home charging. That's great. That's awesome that they've set it up so that it's able to be supported and be good, and that's awesome. Thanks for the feedback. I see Stefan's in here, another fellow journalist, automotive journalist. Thanks for joining in, Stefan. Old Cookie also says new ICE cars are dead, not because they're bad, but they don't make much sense if you have home charging. It's like the diesel Golf in the US. It's not a bad vehicle, but it's not sensible to buy. Yeah, I think EVs are certainly going to make strides here once they get to lower price points. And even like another vehicle I've been seeing, Ioniq 5s, insanely cheap. They've plummeted just like Mach-E's and every other EV right now currently. But like Ioniq 5s are like 30 grand for a nice one now, for a used one. And even another insane deal, Audi e-tron GTs, the sedan, basically like a Porsche Taycan to the Audi version. Those that were like over $100,000 or even like 90 for the cheapest ones. Those are like in the mid 50s now. It is like, if you want an EV, like I don't want to say never, but there will most likely, this is a limited time thing, I think, with these EVs being super cheap right now. I think that we will see demand come back up eventually, but I think it's great because it's making them more affordable for people. I just feel bad for everyone buying these things new. Do not buy a new EV. Lease them, please, so you don't get caught in that just monsoon of depreciation. But yeah, I think it's going to make a lot of sense. Full fill up in our Mach-E's like $8. It's just, it makes so much sense. And I think once they get to a cheap enough level, everyone for their commuter vehicles, you never have oil changes, you never got to stop at the gas station. If you have that home charging ability, it's going to eventually just makes too much sense financially for people for them to ignore it anymore, and they're going to go for it. I think, obviously there's going to be holdouts, and depending on where you live and your needs and stuff, obviously it's not going to be for everyone ever, but I think eventually, it is going to definitely to catch on. And so cool to hear about your experiences there in Norway. Thanks so much, Old Cookie. And let me see, Stud Muffin, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, for Nissan, I would import the Nissan President and rebadge it as an Infiniti. For Subaru, I'd bring back the SVX as a rival to the Mustang and the Nissan Z. Chrysler should have brought back the Aspen. I agree about the Aspen, and I thought I was hearing rumors that they were. And that's another one. Chrysler would be another company I'd love to, they have their vision. They want to turn into some like techie startup kind of EV thing. But seriously, they could phone it in and I think just print money. Grab a Wagoneer, slap Aspen badges on it. That was a funny way to phrase that, but put the Aspen badges on it. Just, I think that would be an easy sell. Or even, put them on a Durango, and jazz up a Durango. And yeah, it just, obviously now Durango is going to be gone in a few years, but so many low-hanging fruit things there that just, yeah, I agree. I love your ideas too, but I'd love to see a new SVX. That'd be another thing I'd love to do as a Subaru CEO as well. And yeah, I think, that's the thing with Nissan, and a lot of these companies have so many other products overseas. And, like you said, badge them as that luxury brand if it's something that you can't justify with the, brand that it has in its home market. I think that'd be great. I see B. Mitchell saying, which Aspen? Hopefully not the clone of the Plymouth Volare. No, we're talking about the Aspen that they did try back in the late 2000s, which I believe at that point was just basically a nicer Durango. But I think that kind of launched right around when the recession hit. Bad time to have a luxury gas guzzling SUV launch. And I think that's what killed it, was just the economic conditions, not that it was a bad idea. But apparently, again, there's smart people within Chrysler that clearly didn't think it was worth trying again, and for whatever reasons, we haven't seen a new Aspen since. But yeah, so very, very interesting. I would love, they usually don't have CEOs at these types of things, but I would love to, go to some of these product launches or car shows and try to, see how much poking I could do before they drag me away with trying to ask some of these CEOs, like, what is the behind the scenes as far as why these things are. I'm sure they have good reasons, but I would love to know what those reasons are. Because other companies, like I said, seems like they can do those types of things, and just strange that, Infiniti can't, and that, other companies can't as well. And Zachary, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, thoughts on buying a used 21 Mach-E premium around 35 grand. The only thing I would say with that is I just don't know where the bottom is with the depreciation for these. They still seem like they're in free fall for the most part. I do think they will rebound at some point. I just don't know when. And, it's just, that's just going to be a gamble. Aside from that, I think they're a great value. I mean, I was happy to pay 50 for ours, back in the summer of 2022. And I think it actually, to me, is justified as a 50 grand car. So getting it for 35, and if it's a nicely kept one and stuff, I think that's great. The only thing I would say with the Mach-E's, they do have some quirks still, and they, every once in a while, they'll push out a software update. Like currently there's a software update for the big battery cars that some of them are like preheating themselves the second you plug them in. And if you're charging on a slower charger, the battery heating that it doesn't really need to do that much, it like that actually kills the battery. Doesn't kill it completely, but drains the battery so much that the charging doesn't even compensate for the drain that it's doing to itself with heating the battery. And that's just a glitch that they're trying to figure out. But there's been a few people that have been almost stranded because they plug in their car, think everything's going to be fine, and they come out and they're like, oh wait, I'm down to a lower percentage than I was before, and they have to limp to a fast charger or something. So I mean, there's still some glitches. It's Ford's first attempt in an EV. And we're all kind of the beta testers as Mach-E owners. And I mean, like our Mach-E has been pretty good, knock on wood. If you watch my Mach-E coverage with our ownership, and I think there's a playlist on the channel you can find too if you go into the playlist for our Mach-E. But with ours, the only thing I will say too, I mean, obviously if you live in a place where you have winter, just be prepared that you're going to have the range cut pretty hard. I think they changed the way that they do range estimates recently because it seems like it hasn't dropped as fast with the range estimates as it did last winter. But last winter, I think it got down to about our small battery Mach-E all-wheel drive premium usually is rated like 222 miles, I believe, something like that. And in the winter, we got down as low as 130. So if you do lots of long drives, might not be the greatest thing in the wintertime. Make sure you live in a place where you can charge every night, or at least when you get to work, you can plug in, one or the other. But aside from that, I think a Mach-E at 35 grand is a great buy. Ours just had the brakes are a little weird with the rear brakes. They keep getting grooves in them. And I talked about this in my 1 year update back in the summer, but they got grooves in the rotors. They replaced first the rotors and said the pads were fine. I'm like, I'm pretty sure the pads are messed up, but I'm not going to tell you how to do your job. So I drove it home from the dealer, and then the pad or the rotors on the brand new rotors were already scored. And I'm like, look, guys, it's the pads. So they said, okay. So they put new pads on, resurfaced those brand new rotors, and everything was good for a little while here. But I just noticed that the passenger side rear rotor is now getting grooves in it. Supposedly that happens if you don't drive a ton because those rear brakes are hardly ever working. So crap gets stuck in them and they just start, scoring the rotors because the rear brakes don't really need to, do their job very often. So anyway, that's the only thing that's been annoying about ours. We will see, how Ford handles that because the dealership was making it out like, oh, we'll take care of your brakes this time, but this is usually a wear and tear thing. If they try and blame it on me this next time I bring it in, I haven't made an appointment yet because it doesn't seem like it's a big deal. But anyway, next time I bring it in, if they try and put that on me, then I'll probably make a big fuss about it and post a rant video or something. But hopefully Ford, continues to take care of that issue. And I'm sure that other people have had other various issues. They're not perfect. So just, I don't know what you're coming out of, Zachary, but I would just make sure that you're aware that it still is a work in progress. They're still over-the-air updates. They're improving it all the time. but it's still a little iffy. I don't know, to be totally honest, if I would want to keep it a long time. That's why I'm glad we just did a 4-year lease on ours, pretty much. And it's the Ford options plan is what we did, but it's basically a lease where you get the tax credit. But so I'm definitely not going to buy it out after the 4-year mark. But, even if I did buy one, I'd keep it for a few years, but I wouldn't buy it as a car you're going to keep for more than 5 to 7 years, just because I still would worry about there being some issues, they come up later on down the road, because I think it still has some gremlins. It almost, to me, is kind of like an older used European vehicle where they have these electrical gremlins because it's over-engineered. I think Ford kind of did a little over-engineering in some ways, and there's some stuff they're just learning as they go. And so I think, it could have the potential to also be a basket case down the road. So I would just, say that's another thing to keep in mind. But if you're going to just buy it, keep it for a few years, and sell it. Hopefully they won't depreciate too much more, and you won't get burned too much. But it's definitely riskier than getting a gas or plug-in hybrid or something like that. I think plug-in hybrids are a great solution as well. Like I love the Mach-E for the most part. It's pretty good, but like, if we didn't want to go with an EV, I think I would have been just as happy with a RAV4 Prime. I love the RAV4 Prime. 42 miles of electric range, enough for most people's normal drives every day. And you got the gas engine to back you up, and those seem to be still very reliable, very solid Toyota. Resale values, they're still holding their value really well because they're impossible to get still. But I think that's just another. There's other options out there. So it's just going to come down to your personality. If you're okay with the EV risks, there are some for sure. It's a great car. Like I said, saves a bunch of money with, being super cheap to charge and not having any kind of maintenance stuff out, with as far as oil changes and all that. But anyway, I went on long enough. Hopefully it helps you out a little bit, Zachary. And feel free to also shoot me a message on Facebook if you want to hear more ownership thoughts after you've watched through the playlist that we've put out here with all of my other impressions so far. But always happy to help anyone with a car buying decision. If you want more info, definitely send me a message on Facebook and we can chat about it some more. But thank you so much, Zachary, for the super chat. And Jordan, thank you so much for the super chat as well. He says, will you include standout questions from previous streams in the shorts? I'm not sure how much digging I will go backwards. I think I may just do it from this one going forward. But if I do find myself, the thing is just digging through these and clipping those, it doesn't take a ton of time, but I'm usually like maxed out every day anyway, just trying to keep up with the 3 videos a week that I already do. But if I have time to go backwards and go into some of the older live streams, there's a lot of great questions that were asked there as well. I'd be happy to go into those too for sure, but we will just see how time works out for me if I have the time to do that. And two, thank you so much for being a member for 19 months. He says 19 months tied to this radiator. I'm beginning to get used to this little heater. I think I'm going to name him Doug. There goes Matt, the Matt tirade. Yeah, we will avoid the Doug tirade today. But thanks for being a member for so long too, and for the support and for keeping us laughing here in the live streams. I always appreciate it. And Truck Car Guy, thanks so much for gifting 5 memberships. I really appreciate that. And I'm sure those people that got those gifts were also very appreciative. They're able to try out the membership perks here as well. And thank you so much for your generosity, Truck and Car Guy. All right, let me get back. I know I'm so far behind on member questions, guys. I apologize, but I'm going to try and go quick here, try and get through them here as best I can. So, where was I? I always have to scroll so far up. I'm going to get a drink break here while I'm looking. All right, so Rafi, CB Mitchell says Raptor R will be the last stand of the supercharged 5.2, especially with the T-Rex being DOA. Possibly, but Ford has said with their EVs, they're able to keep the stuff around that. They have no end date for the V8 Mustang. Supercharged one, maybe that'd be a little harder to justify. But as far as the V8, according to them, like there is no sunset date for the V8. So that means we're talking at least 5 years away, because they plan stuff out way in advance. So if they're saying, and they're being honest, which is also another assumption, but assuming that they're being honest and open, sounds like we'll have V8 Mustangs and potentially Raptor Rs for a long time to come. And Rafi says, dude, that's awesome. I've been reaching out to dealers in SoCal. They're still not budging above $5,000 for those type Rs, man. Honda dealers really seem like they're some of the worst. It's crazy. Let me see. Jonah says Faulkner is great. Went to their Chevy dealer in Bethlehem to look at a used Equinox for my grandfather, and the salesman manager were very polite. Ended up not getting the car, but it was great. Well, glad to hear it's a good dealer. And yeah, anyone who's joining in late, Faulkner Honda does MSRP deals on Type R's. Someone was able to just grab one there, and so definitely give them some support if you're looking for an MSRP deal on a Type R and you're willing to make the trip. And Spy Harper says my friend was looking at a 2024 GTR. Dealer wanted 50 over, and he declined. After a New Year, dealer called offering at MSRP. He said it's too late now as he lost interest. And that's the risk that these dealers are running with this greed is, turning people off. Because I would block that dealer's number if they're like 50 grand over, especially for a GTR. Like I get there's a slight refresh for 2024, but come on, they sell. I can't remember how many GTRs they said they sold last year. It was maybe a couple thousand. I mean, they don't sell very many. I think it was actually only a few hundred, if I'm remembering correctly. But regardless, either way, it's not a high selling vehicle. So like, seriously, I know not every Nissan dealer is getting GTRs left and right, but still, like, this is why these Z's aren't selling, because they're all holding them hostage. It's such a shame. And also Nissan just priced it bad, but with the GTR, they're expensive. So I feel like no one's got the budget to go over on a GTR anymore. But MD Can says, hey, Matt, got my windows tinted on the Kona this week to then get a ceramic coating on Wednesday. Not the happiest about paying a bit for it, but I'll bite the bullet to protect my baby. Well, congrats. Window tints, always fun to do. And the ceramic coating, hopefully that does work well for you. I think, there's definitely some good ceramic coatings. I'm not sure which one you're going with there. But ceramic coatings are interesting because, the only thing about them that I don't love is that you have to baby the finish afterwards. Like you can't take it through a touch car wash, which obviously most of us are probably avoiding anyway. But like if you happen to go to the dealer and they accidentally run it through the touch car wash, like that could mess up the car. And that was one thing with Beth's Mercedes when she leased that. We had a ceramic coating on that. And the one time, I told the dealer every time, like, don't wash it. Sometimes they just make a mistake, and they took it through the car wash the one time. And I think there were a few scratches there as a result. And the ceramic coating, yes, it protects the clear coat, but in my opinion, at least, it doesn't seem like it's that much more durable than a clear coat. Maybe some of the new ones out there are better. But that's the one thing, looking back on like the stuff I did with the Bullet, I did the Expel, which I love the Expel paint protection film. But Expel didn't have their ceramic coating at that point in time. And I just did the ceramic pro coating, and it still has held up really well. Thankfully, I only have 20,000 miles on it. But it's held up really well, but I've also seen some iffy stuff about ceramic coatings, being tough to remove and being, a little iffy. I'm not sure how much that is legit, but just, make sure, that I'm sure you've done a lot of research already if you're dropping, the money on it and all that. But, just make sure that you've gotten both sides of the ceramic coating story to make sure that that is actually something that you want to do. Because I'm not convinced that I would do it on the Bullet again, if I'm totally honest. But I have to do more research before I would give a better opinion on that. But just from what I've seen, it just seems like it's a little more, it also comes down to your personality. Like I don't love babying my cars and having to be, terrified about scratches left and right. I just want to drive it and enjoy it. But, but anyway, congrats on the window tint, especially too. That's always makes every car look better in my opinion. And Evander says, what are your thoughts on Tesla's marketing stunt on the Cybertruck being quicker than the 911 after engineering explained busting them? I have not watched Jason's video on that, so I can't give any thoughts on that. I did see, though, that he said that I think the Cybertruck lead engineer tweeted him back and explained a little bit of why they did things the way they did. So definitely check out if you're on X anymore. I'm not really on it much anymore, but if you're on X, check out Jason. I think retweeted the lead engineer and his explanation as far as his response to that video to give a little more insight there. And let me see. So let me see. Jonah says, my grandfather has a 2004 Taurus wagon. It runs like new. The bottom is rusting away, so safety is a concern, and he has to get rid of it. That's a shame, that the rust is still an issue on so many cars, but glad that it lasted that long for him. That's great that 2004 Taurus is still kicking mechanically. That's pretty impressive. And let me see. I see Two's comment there. And Jonah says the Taurus wagon is a great car and very comfortable. I'm going to miss it. This is my grandfather has had for my entire life. Yeah, that's always tough when it's a sentimental thing like that. And MD Can's saying, yeah, almost 100 people tuning in, which is great. I was not expecting this many people in here with the football games and all that, but very, very happy to see that. I'm hoping these live streams can, someday get a little more popular, because I think it's great having so many great, comments, and I think we're having a good time in here. But even if it's just 100 of us, that still is great, and makes it more intimate as well, I think, too, which is, it's both pros and cons for both. But anyway, B Mitchell says, quit whining too. Karate chop guy's sister at least cleans out the litter box next to the radiator. You're chained to. I love that everyone's just running with the joke. This is great. Jordan says, my family owned a Chrysler Dynasty, Chevy Celebrity, and Ford Tempo. Man, that is quite the collection there. I'm curious which one treated them best. My bet would be maybe the Chrysler, but because the Celebrities I feel like were not great either, and Tempo certainly wasn't good, at least the one from my experience. But that's cool that you also have some experience there with a Tempo as well, Jordan. Zachary says, Matt, what are some normal but also rare cars you can think of? This is such a tough one. I mean, there are some, like, I don't know if you consider them normal, but like the Murano Cross Cabriolets and Range Rover Evoque convertibles, or some of those kind of unicorns in a way. I mean, as far as like other rare cars, I think usually it's just like stuff with a manual that just no one hardly ever gets the manual in them, like Mazda 3s, for example. Some of that stuff. I'd probably need some more time to think of. So I see someone just mentioned a Cross Tour. That's another one that is probably one of those rare normal cars. Cross Tours and Infiniti. They did the rebadged Mercedes GLA. I think it was called the QX30. They couldn't have made very many of those. So that's probably another one of those rare normal cars. And there's probably a few others, but it's some of the first ones off the top of my head there. Vishal says, should Honda bring back the Crosstour? Always thought it was an interesting car. I don't know, because it seems like, and even like Buick, they had the Regal Torex, which is a phenomenal car. My father-in-law actually has one, but I think that was a really good attempt at making a Subaru Outback. But they couldn't crack it. No one's been able to crack that thing other than Subaru. And I don't know what the magic sauce is at Subaru, where like Subaru takes a hatchback and jacks it up a little bit and puts body cladding on it. And everyone's like, whoa, it's an awesome SUV. Let's all buy them. But then when any other company does it, it's like, no, I don't want that. And it's just like they stay far away. And, I don't know. There's rumors now that Ford may bring back the Fusion as like a Fusion, touring, or I don't know what they would call it, but it would be some type of Outback competitor. But I just feel like only Subaru can do that. I don't know what it is. They must. I don't know. Subaru's got some witchcraft going on or something. That everyone is like, oh, I love wagons. Only when it's a Subaru. Every other wagon, everyone in America hates it. But the second that you put a Subaru badge on it, all right, let's buy some wagons, and everyone loves them. It just makes no sense. So I think, yes, someone certainly could crack it other than Subaru, at least in my logical brain, thinking that, yes, like this should not be a Subaru exclusive thing. But I think the pessimist in me is like, you know what? No one's been able to do it yet. And so it's probably best just to leave the Cross Tour in the history books, because I doubt Honda would be able to crack it. And I honestly think, in the lineup these days, they don't have much room for it either, with the Passport, being in that kind of spot now too. And Trident Car Guy says, I may be a bit biased owning a wagon, but I'm tired of all the crossovers and would love to see wagons gain popularity again. But I didn't even see that comment, but I'm glad we're all on the same theme here for these questions here. But yeah, I'd love to see wagons. I know your Magnum is awesome. I wish that Dodge, I don't know why, Dodge is one of those cool companies that I think could have, kept the Magnum around, kept it awesome, done the same stuff they did to the Charger and the Challenger. Put a lot of stuff in Magnums. I think they could have made Magnums right up until 2023 here, and it's such a disappointment that they didn't keep it around. But I'd love to see wagons be popular again, and we will see. There's been some companies that have said with EVs, the ground clearance and the rugged, blocky styling is just horrible for range and aerodynamics. And so a lot of companies are saying, like, we're going to have to get back to the streamlined look. Volkswagen, I think, was the one that was saying this when they were talking about the ID7. They're like, look, we can't do blocky stuff if we want to actually have good range in these EVs. We got to do sleek stuff. So I think that's a prime time for the wagons to come back. And they do have the ID7 wagon. I don't know if they confirmed that one for the States or not, but they're doing it, I think, in Europe. But I think it makes a ton of sense. If you tell someone, hey, your choices are a wagon or an SUV, but you get an extra 30 miles of range out of the wagon, maybe that would be enough to sway some people back into a wagon. I don't know. It seems like they still have, a weird stigma around them to some people, but I think hopefully wagons can, maybe someday they will be popular again. It's every automotive journalist's dream to have the brown diesel manual wagon return to its wondrous glory that it had back in the 80s or whatever. It's I think something that's never going to happen, unfortunately. And Jonah says Toyotas are still bad, love their cars, but the dealers are impossible. There are some bad dealers out there for sure, and Toyota, it's unfortunate they haven't been able to keep up with demand for the primes in particular. I mean, it's insane that 3 years into RAV4 prime production, we still can't get them on dealer lots, and dealers are still price gouging those things. It is unfortunate. I genuinely think the RAV4 prime would be the perfect car to electrify America like immediately if they were just able to build enough of them. They sell 400,000 RAV4s. If they, I think a few people, more than a few people would be more than happy to jump up to the prime and its price premium if they could just get one at sticker and get one easily. And then you immediately have, with 42 miles of range, everyone's commute is electric almost entirely, and they all have the gas engine, so they can go on their once a year beach trip or whatever and not have to worry about plugging in and have the mental relief of, I have a gas engine whenever I need to drive more. But yet realistically, they would never burn through that 42 miles in most cases. And it would be an electric RAV4, and you would immediately overnight, you'd just demolish the amount of CO2 emissions and all that kind of stuff. And it would make a huge impact with way less resources, by the way. So many perks. I mean, even Toyota told us themselves whenever they were doing the Prius Prime, they were like, look, we can make one BZ4X or we can make like 7 Prius Primes. Like, you tell us what makes more sense with this thing having enough range again for everyone's commutes. It makes so much sense, but they can't build enough of them. I don't know what their problem is with those prime battery packs not being able to, scale up production. But if they can figure that out someday, I think the prime models are primed to, be the perfect vehicle for most of America. But yeah, it's a shame that they haven't been able to execute that better. So I see more. Spy Harpy is talking about the Tesla response about why didn't they do a full quarter mile? The fastest 8 mile quarter mile hit while towing on the day was 7. So this is in the tweet. It's 7.808 at 88 miles per hour, and the trailer tires were only rated for 80 miles per hour, so they opted to call it a day before someone got hurt. So thanks for copying that there, Spy. And so that was the bottom line. And I mean, I guess it makes sense. But still, seemed a little misleading to some people, and I can certainly appreciate both sides to that. Let me see other questions here. So Double Strikes is trying to decide whether to privately sell versus Carvana. Sell my pristine 2014 Audi S6, brand new turbo, so feel bad not selling to an enthusiast, but fast money is nice too. Thoughts? Well, I think if you're private selling is the one extreme, and then Carvana is the other. I think I would put it on Bring a Trailer, especially if it's really pristine and brand new turbos. I think you could find a better buyer on Bring a Trailer, or the other site that I don't like naming, but you could do one of those. And I think, that way, you get your 7-day auction or whatever. I mean, you have the risk, because it seems like they do better whenever you don't do a reserve, which can be risky. But if you do a reserve, if it's a low enough reserve, hopefully people would still bid it up, and you'd get a better deal that way. Or even start with a Carvana price, see what Carvana is going to give you, make that the reserve on Bring a Trailer, put it up there, and just see what happens. And I think there's a premium. I think they just take out after the fact or something. But I don't know if there's a cost up front. But especially if there isn't, put it up there for a week, have nothing to lose, honestly. And if it is going for more, then great. And if it doesn't, then dump it on Carvana or whatever. But I think that's probably my way that I would play that. If you need money faster than a week or two, then obviously Carvana might be better. Although, a lot of these, I've heard horror stories about a lot of these, car buying, companies, these online things where they take forever to send you checks and they screw up the titling paperwork and everything. So it just turns into a fiasco and stuff. I think TFL had that with Vroom. So there's some risks. There's actually not I mean, I think maybe some of them pay you on the spot. I'm not sure, but for the ones that don't, you may not actually get your money as fast anyway. So I'd go bring a trailer and, see how it goes from there personally. Ludacris says a couple of sellers I've spoken to on Marketplace said they got their cars shipped from states like Texas and Nevada up here in Massachusetts. Our state is very unfriendly to anything nice because of our roads and rust. Yeah, same here in Pittsburgh for sure. But yeah, cars getting shipped is another way to go about it for sure. And Saturday says, Crazy Cadillac has the supercharged V8 out of everyone wish I could have one. Yeah, it's great that, Cadillac has been able to keep that around longer than Dodge and all these other companies. It's kind of funny how, GM and Ford are having the last laugh, even though Dodge was, thumping their chest and acting like they were the best thing out there. And then it's like, again, it's a very short-term plan that was, they went out in the blaze of glory with the V8s, but now they're giving up all their market share for everyone who wants a V8, to the Mustangs and those Blackwings and all that. Troy Car Guy says, I know it may be sacrilegious to say this, but I would have been okay with it if they hybridized the Hemi, if that meant they could keep it alive. Yeah, and maybe, I think someone mentioned this also in the most recent weekly update in the comments there. I think maybe if they would have improved the hybrid system, or maybe if they do it as a plug-in hybrid, and there's been rumors that's, I think Motor Trend, I don't believe it, so don't get excited about this, but I think Motor Trend was saying that a new Hellcat Charger would be like a naturally aspirated V8 with the plug-in hybrid tech to get it up to over 700 horsepower. And that would be the way they do it. I think that would definitely be a very popular thing. I just don't know from their fleet average standpoint if that would be enough to help them out. Because, Stellantis is going to get hammered. I can't remember how many hundreds of millions of dollars are going to get hammered with their fleet averages being bad for this year. And they're even retroactively, I think the government's going after like prior years as well somehow. So, Stellantis is just going to be bleeding money, bad from all this stuff. So I just don't know how drastic they need to go to what that, someone's going to crunch the numbers there to, figure out how far do they go? Do they just go completely electric for everything? Or do they need to, can they keep, V8s around with a plug-in hybrid thing or something like that? I think the problem with doing regular hybrids for, V8 powered, big things, or even, heavy stuff like the Charger and the Challenger is like, you can do a hybrid, but, it's not going to work as often because it's just got so much weight to tote around. And that's why I think you're seeing a lot of the bigger, heavier stuff is going plug-in hybrids. Because like GM tried a hybrid Tahoe back in like 2008 and stuff. Again, that might have also been another victim of the recession, but GM tried that and no one went for it, at least back then. Maybe they'd have better luck these days. But I think, it just back then especially didn't really improve fuel economy that much. Again, maybe with modern engineering, that wouldn't be the case. Maybe it would be better these days. But I think that's kind of the problem is, with some of these weak little hybrid systems, it works great in a little Corolla or something like that. But whenever you're doing in a giant or even just a Challenger or Charger, being expensive and heavy and stuff, are you going to actually improve the fuel economy that much? And I think you'd still have people mad. You'd have Mopar people that are like, oh, why is my gas engine turning off? And they'd be, upset about it, that they're not, idling at, insanely high decibels at a red light and stuff. So, it's, yes, people would be okay with it. A lot of people, but there's a lot of other people that would not be okay with it. So there's still, I think, no matter how Dodge plays it, someone's going to be mad about it, So I'm not envious of Dodge's CEO right now, that's for sure. Because man, talk about just being damned if you do and damned if you don't. It'd be a tough spot to be in. I definitely don't want to take over Dodge as CEO, because that would be, trying to juggle the requirements from the government and just from the market right now, and then just what all your fans are telling you and all that is just tough. So Marco says, hey, what's up, Matt? How's it going? How's the family? Thanks for joining in, Marco. Family's doing well here. Just a little bit of congestion, but otherwise doing well here. Thanks for asking, Marco. Thanks for joining in too. Ludacris says, doesn't it get tiring hearing them ask you that Subaru question so much? I'm guessing you're talking about the WRX fan thing. I see B. Mitchell saying 7 years on YouTube is 432 talk years. There you go. It's been a long time since I switched the name, but it doesn't get tiring because I totally get it. Not everyone's a super fan that pays attention. Some people, they subscribe to the channel just because they buy a car once every 5 years and they liked my reviews 5 years ago, and they just tune in the next time they need to buy a car. And that's, for a lot of people, that's just me doing my job right. I'm helping them find a car they love. They love it until, they're looking for something new. And then they come back and then like, oh, wait, like, who's this guy? Why is his name different now? I subscribed to Super Darks Fan and now I'm seeing this Matt Maran motoring thing or something, so there's some of that too. So I totally get it. It's all good. But yeah, it's always funny when someone's a little confused still. And I see Jonas saying the Subaru needs to bring back the 3.6, talking about the brands there that Stub Muffin was talking about earlier. Yeah, if they could find a way to make the 3.6 better on fuel efficiency, then that could definitely be a good way. But Subaru is not great with optimizing fuel efficiency with those boxer motors. So they'd need to get some fresh engineering ideas in there, I think, if they wanted to make that 3.6 a more viable motor for modern emissions requirements. And Ludacris is saying Pontiac would be a great brand to bring back. It'd be so much fun to bring back Pontiac and do some fun stuff. Trunk Car Guy says, bring back the Evo if we're going to revive Mitsubishi. Totally agree. That's definitely the number one priority if I ever was able to take over Mitsubishi. Let me see. Dave says you could save Jaguar. Yeah, that's another company that would be fun to take over. But as far as, how to juggle that one, because especially with Europe being so much more aggressive with the emissions and with the deadlines for EVs and stuff, it's I think with Jag they're doing the right thing with going electric, because I think that's just what they have to do. I think I would have probably strung it out a little bit longer until you absolutely needed to, but I think that's what they're going to have to do. All these European companies are obviously going to have to do that, but I think going for this ultra premium like Bentley competitor, which is what they're planning for Jag, is not going to work out. There is no way, unless it's a flying car or something, there is no way that someone's going to pick a Jag over a Bentley, or even any of these other high-end brands. Even like a Maserati, I think has a better chance of a higher push-up market than Jaguar does. So I think Jag, they're better suited to be a mainstream luxury brand competitor and stay in their lane there. But we will see how it plays out for them. I think they said every Jag's going to be over 100 grand whenever these new ones come out, and it's just like, good luck. I hope it works out for them, but I'm not optimistic about that one. Let me see. So Greg's saying that Subaru seems so behind for the interiors to me. Definitely. And that's been my number one complaint if you watch any of my Subaru reviews. And I see Marco saying that he agrees. Yeah, my in-laws have a Forester 2018, I think. It feels hollow and cheap, and it drives so well, especially in this Nebraskan negative 10-degree weather. It's surprising. Even like with a brand new Forester, same thing. They phoned it in on the interior. Still has analog gauges. Still has, the screen they've been using since 2020. It's whatever. I mean, again, their sales are fantastic. So that it's one of those things with Subaru where it's like, as a reviewer, like, yes, this is not competitive, but then I have to look at the sales figures and say, people don't care. And that's just the reality for some people, is they do not care. And that's fine. Everyone likes something different. And if people would rather pay the same money for a Forester as they're paying for a RAV4 or a CRV or something like that, which have, better tech, better driving dynamics, better basically everything, but they have an appeal there. Again, I don't know what witchcraft Subaru's using, but I'm sure every other company is jealous of the fact that Subaru can get away with old interiors, the slow infotainment systems. I have another Crosstrek this week. I'm doing a premium one because I haven't tested out the slowest motor yet, which, man, that thing, you'll see in my review, but 9.5 seconds 0 to 60. Like, again, people are fine with it, so I'm reviewing it because it sells a ton of vehicles. They sell so many of those things, and it's important to cover because they're cheap and people love them. So who am I to discount that? But that's another one where it's just like, it boggles my mind, that people go for this stuff when there are some really impressive options out there. And I mean, nothing against Crosstreks. My mother-in-law's got a Crosstrek. My parents have Crosstreks. Again, they are really nice in a lot of ways. They don't it's not like everything about them is bad. They do really good packaging, with the interior and stuff as far as how much space you get. The all-wheel drive system's been marketed heavily for decades, so that's always, a selling point for people, even if it's not actually that much better than other all-wheel drive systems. And in some cases, it's actually worse. But anyway, won't go on a rant any longer. But yeah, it always blows my mind what Subaru can get away with that other companies can't. Let me see. So Jordan, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, with advancements in AI tech, do you see AI programs creating the perfect vehicle for humans? Any company looking in that besides the nanotech form? AI, it's smart in some ways, but it's also still incredibly dumb in others. And I know it'll probably evolve really fast and get better really quickly. And I mean, there's always the potential for AI to maybe introduce a new idea that a car company, hasn't thought of on their own, especially with a lot of these companies being echo chambers where it's a boardroom of people all high-fiving each other. And, like with Subarus, be like, yeah, let's put an old interior in and let's, make them uncompetitive in other ways. And let's make them hideous. But hey, people are going to keep buying them. High fives all around. And, it's, so maybe AI would open up some of these companies and be like, oh, wait, maybe we have some open-mindedness to this that we wouldn't have if some random new employee came in and said, hey, why don't you make a Baja? Maybe if an AI tech says, hey, why are you not doing a Baja? Maybe that'll sway them more or something, just to pick on Subaru unfairly. But, I think AI it's even with my experience, I've tried to use it to make titles a little more exciting and come up with other video ideas in the past, and it's okay, but it still certainly has its limits. I think car companies, especially some of the more dated car companies, they have their formulas, they have what they want as far as their goals and what they think people expect out of the brand, what they want the brand to be. And, so I think there's not a ton of flexibility. I think AI could maybe optimize a few things for that kind of stuff, but I really feel like it's going to be a while before I think AI can really, change car design and car setup and things like that. Because I just feel like there's not a lot there. Because, for example, an AI would probably say, what is the most efficient vehicle to minimize people's costs and to make their lives better? And AI would probably say an EV because it's cheap to fill up. And again, if you can get that cost parity with the battery, I'm not trying to be a cheerleader for EVs here, but from a logical, cold standpoint, it's cheaper to run. It's less work to go to a dealer and get an oil change. You don't have to do that with EVs. And as long as, assuming the EV is reliable and safe and all that, it's, in an AI's mind, EV is the right answer for basically every commuter that at least can charge at home or at work. But then you look at the reality, people are like, no, I don't want that for whatever reason. And a lot of these reasons, some of them are rational, some of them are also irrational. And I think an AI, probably can't compensate for that irrational part. And this is what car companies, with humans running them, have to grapple with, is like, this is what we should be doing, but this is what people want. And those two things, I think, are what keep a lot of car companies from doing the logical thing. I think there's a lot of companies that, they do have that very logical, like, this is the best way, this is what we should do. And then it hurts their competitiveness because it's like, yeah, this is great, but it's not what people want. I think, like Mazda, they do all this research about how distracting it is to use a touchscreen. And according to their studies of, filming, I don't know how many thousands of people's eyeballs and their movements and how much they have to move with the controller wheel versus a touchscreen, Mazda swears up and down a controller wheel is the more safe thing. It is the less distracting thing. And a lot of Mazda owners would agree. But a lot of people, they see a Mazda or they see one of my reviews, I see it in all my comment sections. Oh, I don't want a controller wheel. And it's a deal killer for them, completely just not even open to consideration. An AI would maybe say everyone should have a controller wheel, but everyone wants a touchscreen. There's all those types of, things that you just, there's just a couple of examples of ways that humans probably prefer a worse way from what is the optimal computer optimized thing. And so I think that AI could actually hurt car companies if they listen to AI too much, because I think it's going to, humans are not rational beings, especially when it comes to car purchases. It's an emotional purchase that doesn't make a lot of sense for a lot of people. There are some people that are very cold about it, and they'll just, make a spreadsheet and, list out pros and cons or whatever. But a lot of people, it's just, they like the color. They like the way it looks. The interior feels great. I mean, I get all kinds of comments from people that they say, oh, well, this this Lexus has a worse ride than my old 10-year-old Toyota. It's like objectively that cannot be true, but to that person it is very much their reality, and so they will, not ever consider a new Lexus because their 10-year-old Toyota rides better in their mind or whatever. And there's all those types of things as well. So there's a lot of different things you're going up against, and I think AI will never be able to properly account for the irrationality of humans. And this is why autonomous cars, I think, will never go anywhere either for a long, long time, because AI has to compensate for the unpredictable nature of humans, the stuff that doesn't make sense, the bogus, just bozo stuff that we see on the roads every single day, as anyone who ever drives can attest to, whether it's just bad decision making by people, irrational reactions to things, whatever the case might be. The computers can't account for that. If every car on the road was driven by a computer, we'd have autonomous cars tomorrow, but you can't make that switch over. And so in this in-between period, computers are struggling with all that stuff. So, those are some of the biggest, hurdles right now. And that's probably another great question, Jordan, for another snippet to, clip out here into a dedicated video, because I'm sure a lot of people are kind of wondering that same stuff. But I think AI is going to probably just be a bad idea for a while. And Giovanni, thank you so much for the super chat. They're asking, hey, Matt, I want to upgrade my Veloster R-Spec. I'm torn between the 2023 WRX or a 2021 STI. Is it worth to get the STI over the new WRX? So I would say it's going to come down to how you want to own the vehicle. As far as do you want to do mods? Do you care about fuel economy? Neither of them are great, but I think the new WRX is certainly a little bit better than the STI. STI is a more special experience, but those EJ motors can certainly be problematic, especially with mods. But there's even someone that I've been messaging on Facebook who's had terrible experience with his final model year STI that's been totally stocked, totally babied, and it's just leaking oil left and right. So there's some risks there with those old EJ motors. So again, you can maybe get a good one and be fine. It's the same thing with the Voodoo GT350 motors. Those motors, some people burn a quart of oil every 1,000 miles in the GT350. Other people, they've driven them 60,000 miles and never had to add a drop of oil in their lives. So you're going to have some of that with the STI. It's going to be luck of the draw with an STI, I think, unfortunately. So it's going to come down to your risk profile as far as how much you're comfortable with risk-wise. The WRX, it seems like the new WRXs take really well to mods. They seem like you can just kind of breathe on them with a tune and immediately get back up to, STI power levels. And then, so personally, as much as I love that, last gen STI, I would probably do a WRX with light mods to get it to an STI level and just go with that. That would probably be the way I'd play it. Also, STIs, it seems like they're holding their values pretty well. I think you're better off. I don't know how much equipment you want, but go for a cheap, because I think the best value WRXs are the lowest trims. So I'd go for the lowest trim you're willing to put up with from a technology and equipment standpoint. Go for a cheap WRX. Throw the extra money that you would have spent on an STI into mods, and then just get to get a modern STI that Subaru won't build and just do that instead. That'd probably be the way I'd go between those two. I will also mention, if you love the way STIs drive, Two's going to say at some point here that I'm a Toyota shill, but GR Corolla is the spiritual successor to the STI, in my opinion, like I mentioned earlier in this live stream. So I don't know if that's in your interest realm at all, but if you're at all interested in a GR Corolla or open to one at all, I'd at least see if you can. And it's probably going to be impossible to test drive one, but if you can, or at least do a little looking into the GR Corollas, do some research on them if you're curious. If it were me and I was spending mid 30s to low 40s on something with all-wheel drive and a manual, I'd be driving a GR Corolla. But WRX is great too, especially if you get one of those cheap $30,000 ones. Really tough to argue with that. I think that'd be a solid buy. But STIs are just a little iffy these days, that I would probably stay away from one if you're someone that at least has the same risk aversions that I do. But thank you so much for the super chat, and definitely let me know if you have any follow-up questions for sure. And I see TFI PW is also saying, work for Subaru Canada. Get the STI if you want the old school Subi drivability. Get the WRX if you want a no fuss experience. Let me know if you have any more questions. 6MT feels better than the STI. Yeah, and that's great. And thank you so much for offering that as well. It's so great to see everyone kind of chiming in and offering their own experiences and their help. So thanks so much, TF, for that as well. And all right, I got to get caught up on these member questions as well. so we're not too far behind. Let's see where I was here. All right, so we're ranting about Subaru here, and says Matt, do you think we would live to see the day where gas cars are completely banned from being driven on the road entirely? That's a great question. Thanks for asking. The thing to keep in mind about this, and this could be another really good little separate video one. The thing to keep in mind about the whole idea of gas cars going away completely is that right now, as of what we know currently, a lot of states they're banning them in 2035 for a new car sale. The average age of a car on a road in America is over 12 years old now. So, realistically, unless there's some kind of crazy high incentive program to really get people out of those gas cars, like a cash for clunkers type thing, but on steroids where there's tons of money being thrown at people. Outside of a situation like that, I think that, you're going to have to add on 12 years at least before those 2035 EVs are cheap enough to be used vehicles for the average person driving a 12-year-old car on the road. So, at that point, we're talking about 2047. And, even then, I feel like, if we say maybe 2050, all gas cars are banned, even that I think is a stretch. I think there will always be, historical exemptions, maybe, yes, they might be banned for daily drivers, but if you put less than 10,000, 5,000, however many thousand miles on them, there'll be something, because you can even see, like right now, you've been able to, like import previously unimportable vehicles from other countries over here on a show and display kind of permit or whatever. And I think with R34 GTRs and stuff like that, some people brought them over that way. And I think that's like limiting you to like 1,000 miles a year. Not a lot, but if you're not doing road trips and stuff, you can still drive around town and go to car shows and stuff like that and do all those types of things. So, and we already have that currently. And so, outside of some massive cultural shift where everyone just hates gas cars, which I don't think is ever going to happen either. I feel like there's no way that in our lifetime, most of us in here, at least most of my viewers, it seems are, not super young teenagers. So most of us are probably at least in our 20s to 30s. 2050, I'm, I'll be 34 this year. 2050, I'm not even doing the math. That I'll be 60 at that point. If gas cars are banned by the time I'm 60, I'd still be sad about it. But I've at least lived the majority of my life enjoying gas cars. So, not that I want to, compromise on that, but it's just something that, at least even in that worst case scenario of 2050, which I still think is unrealistic, I'm going to be 60 years old, So I think that's why, maybe in our lifetime, but it's going to be way, way far away. So I think we still have a long, long time for all of us to enjoy gas-powered vehicles. And I think that it could, last again well beyond 2050, even for that as well. We'll just have to see, how things play out and, what happens in the world. I've even said there's a total possibility that we could go back to the gas glory days, and this could be the 1970s all over again, where that was a different situation, but they're really clamping down on the V8s and stuff, and you see all these things drop out and everything just get completely neutered in the 70s. And then all of a sudden, you had stuff come back in the 80s, and then really more full force in the 90s. And then obviously now into the 2000s, we've seen this resurgence. If someone comes up with some awesome carbon capture technology or some type of way to, really improve things where the transportation sector doesn't need to be a focal point for improvement anymore, then we're all off the hook, and we can, have our crazy gas guzzler stuff, and I can drive my Bullet until I'm 100 years old or whatever, if I want. That would be great. So I think that's a decent possibility as well. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But I'm hoping at least even in a worst case scenario, we're going to all be pretty old by the time that stuff all completely gets banned, if that ever happens. But I'm not worried about that personally, but it all comes down to how you see things, I guess. But thanks for the great question. Michelle, wait, I think we get another super chat in here. We did. We got a couple. Apologize. Two says, you're not a Toyota shill. The GRR says in your basement says otherwise. Yeah, I wish, man, I'd love to have a GRR. That'd be fantastic. I'd love any GR thing. I would probably just go to work for Toyota and just like do this channel as like a fun vlog thing on the side. If Toyota offered me a free GR Yaris as a daily driver, corporate car, and a decent salary, I'd just go work for Toyota. I'd be totally fine with that. I'd be a cog in the machine and help improve from the inside. But let me see. Stud Muffin, thank you so much for the super chat again as well. He says, which of these American icons would have the best sales success as a performance family sedan in 2024? Ford Torino, Chevy Chevelle, or Chrysler Imperial? It's a great question. I think Imperial probably would be the easy last place one in my mind. I think it'd be between Chevelle and Torino. I'm still so mad they didn't put the Chevelle badge on the Chevy SS sedan back in the day. But I think between those two, I'd say Chevelle might be the better success if Chevy actually bothered to put marketing money behind it, which they don't like doing with all their fun products typically. I'd say Chevelle if there's a marketing budget. Otherwise, Torino probably would be the one to have the best success there. And it'd be great to see all those. There were rumors of a four-door Mustang, like actual sedan with a V8. That never happened. There was, rumors of a Chevelle. Maybe we will still see an electric Chevelle someday if they, are trying to do something like that as a performance EV, sedan thing. Excuse me. I don't know. We'll see. But that'd be fun. But thanks for the fun question, Stud Muffin. I appreciate it. And Evgeny says, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, hi, Matt. Do you think a BRZ TS is the only affordable fun car to have right now? Used market for enthusiast cars is insane right now, especially for tall people, I'm guessing. So I don't know if I love the value proposition of the TS, honestly. I mean, I like that they at least didn't, inflate the price too much. It's going to come down to, I guess, how badly you want those better brakes. If you really want Brambos on a BRZ, TS could make some sense. I will hopefully be reviewing one this spring. There is one in the press fleet coming. So stay tuned for a BRZ TS review, hopefully this spring. But as far as, I think regular BRZ is great. I don't think there's any need to go up to the TS unless you're doing a lot of track driving. But yeah, I think BRZ is it's not the only fun one. There's GR86 obviously, and then also I think Miata. I think Miata is a fantastically fun little car. In some ways, I think it's actually more fun than the BRZ and the GR86. In some ways, I think GR86 and BRZ are a little bit better, but they're both kind of evenly matched in my mind. And then it also comes down to what your definition of affordable is, because BRZ TS, what are those, like, I think 34, 35. I mean, you can get a used GR Corolla for 37. I just saw the other day on Auto Trader. So I think that's another great, fantastic choice. And as far as used market, there are some things that are coming back. Like I just was mentioning earlier in this live stream, Mazda 3 turbo hatches. Those have gotten down to the mid to low 20s already. A car that was 35 grand just a couple of years ago. You can get one of those for 23 to 25 grand. Great enthusiast buy. Throw some better tires and wheels on it, put an exhaust on it. You got a great little hot hatch, I think. So I think there are still some used values out there for enthusiasts. I think another great one is Mini Cooper S. This current gen Mini Cooper has been shown to be really reliable, despite everyone's, I see you're saying tall people, so Miata's out. I gotcha. I think Mini could potentially work. I think they seem to have a decent amount of headroom. You can get a nice Mini Cooper S, for well under 20 grand. And even John Cooper works for under 20. It's got the manual, fun little car. It's not a sports car as far as rear-wheel drive and all that. But I think there's also other stuff. I'm not sure how well you fit in Corvettes if you're 6'2", but I think, you can get a good deal on a C7, good deal on, C6s, C5s. People are loving those for good reason. And I think there's lots of great deals on Mustangs to be had. I'm not sure how you fit in those, but, Mustangs are, pretty good. Camaros, Challengers, all that kind of stuff. I think there's a lot of really good affordable stuff, in my opinion, out there. There are some things that haven't depreciated much. Camaros are actually an example of one that, probably hasn't really depreciated that much. But Mustangs are still, depreciating usually for the regular ones. There's enough Challengers out there to, depreciate for, the non-super special ones of those. So I think I think we actually have a lot of really good stuff out there. There's been a lot of fun stuff. We really have lived through this glory days of the 2010s of, the horsepower wars and all these fun options that have, since gone away for some of them. But I think there's a lot of really fun stuff that you can get used now from these 2010s in that era. Again, as far as headroom goes, yeah, I'm not sure, how many of those will fit, if you're taller, but I still feel like, again, going for some of that larger stuff, those muscle cars, things like that could certainly, be an option potentially. And even like, I don't know how there are some dealers offering like a few grand off Mustang GTs. But the new gen GTs, they actually increased the headroom in them for a helmet was their reasoning. But 2024 Mustangs might actually be a better headroom situation for you if you don't fit great in an S550. Check out the S650s. You can get a bare bones GT. I still think for low 40s. If you knock a few grand off of the dealer, your high 30s, maybe potentially. I think TFL just actually picked one up just like that. If you want to check out their channel. That could be, another option. I see also Evgeny, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, do you think Cayman and Boxster S older model is a steal deal? I know maintenance technical a nightmare. Yes, if you're not put off by the maintenance and the electronics potentially being wonky, I think that Cayman and Boxster S are great values. I'm hoping to review another one. I did do one a long time ago of the first gen Cayman, but I have someone who has another Cayman nearby. I think it's a PDK though, so I think that was part of why I wasn't rushing to review that. But he was really enjoying it. I think he kind of missed the manual, so that's why he doesn't love the gearbox in it. But he really liked the Cayman experience as well. But I think that's another really good solid value. If you fit in those well, I think that's great as long as you don't mind the extra upkeep. Cayman and Boxsters are fantastic cars for sure. I mean, there's a reason why they're so beloved, and they have depreciated though. So I think that would be a really great pickup for sure. And there's lots of good stuff. So many things. Just depends on how far back you want to go and what your preferences are. But there's a lot of good stuff to pick from, in my opinion. And Jordan, thank you so much for the super chat. He says the film The Italian Job put the Mini on the map. Yep, and that was actually one of the reasons why I kind of wanted a Mini all along was seeing the newer Italian Job remake here. It was in the early 2000s. Made me want to get a Mini for sure. And unfortunately, I picked the wrong generation, getting the R56, and that thing was just a nightmare reliability wise. But there's still a part of me if I wanted again like a cheap little fun car, if I needed a downgrade from the Bullet and get something cheaper, I'd be very tempted to pick up a older or an older version of this current gen Mini Cooper S with a manual. You can get one of those for like 15 grand. It'd be tempting for sure. I don't know if I want to fall into that trap twice, but I mean, again, this new gen Mini Cooper seems like it's been really reliable. So it'd be tempting to try that out again someday. And also it'd be great for YouTube views, because even if it was horribly unreliable, that's what gets the views these days is, all the drama. Let me see. I know I'm so far behind on member questions. I apologize. I'll probably go a little over 2 hours here just to try and get caught up the best I can, because I don't want to miss member questions. But let me see. Where was I? So Vishal says, what do you think of the Infiniti QX80 concept? Do you think they can make a comeback with it? I think that'll be more of the same, same thing we've seen with the refreshed Armada. It seems like it'll be, nice and impressive for people that don't mind, the older bones and stuff. But, it's going to have the new engine, but I feel like it's not going to, make a huge change in QX80 sales personally. I think that just from what I know about QX60 and all that, I can't envision it really being that much better than a Grand Wagoneer or a Navigator or any of those top dogs. Escalade, like, are you gonna beat the Escalade? I doubt it. So I just we'll see what happens. Always keep an open mind, and I'm sure there'll be some impressive stuff, and for some people it might be the right choice, but I still think that it's tough to beat, especially the Americans at their own game. Let me see. So Marco says, so talking about, let me see. Anthony's saying, how do you feel about the G86 and BRZ manuals getting super eyesight? I think I don't love the idea of autonomous emergency braking stuff. So I'd probably prefer one without it. That was one thing I was really happy. The Bullet, I was able to get one of the Mustangs before they made that switch, I believe in 2021, to put that stuff in all of them. I'm sure it's fine. You can turn off most of that stuff, so it's not that big of a deal. It's just, it's an extra pain, as far as getting windshields replaced and things like that. But I don't think it's that big of a deal. I would certainly still happily daily drive one with the eyesight system and just turn everything off as much as I could personally. But I think it should be fine. Um, and let me see. Saturday Jones says Lincoln MKZ and Continental has a twin turbo V6 400 horsepower front wheel drive car. Can you get those with? It's a good point. So I know we're going way back to the earlier questions there about a high horsepower, 300 horsepower front wheel drive thing, but I didn't think Continental. Could you actually get it with front wheel drive? MKZ, I think I remember that, but so that's a good point. They did do it in that, but the Continental, I thought you had to get all wheel drive when you went up to that motor, but I could be wrong. Yeah, that'd be pretty. I've never driven a front wheel drive Continental, but that would be a fun, yeah, twin turbo V6 going through the front wheels would be interesting. And yeah, B Mitchell's also saying as regards to that front wheel drive thing, you cannot change the laws of physics, says Scotty supposedly. And Ludicrous Fool says GM did a bunch of V8 front wheel drive cars in the mid to late 2000s. Can only imagine how much strain the front tires would be under. Well, and like I just did the Impala SS, which was front wheel drive, but that was still only 300 odd horsepower in that. So that was kind of the limit there. I don't know if any of the other ones had that much more than that. I'm sure there were maybe a few, but yeah, it was just a mess with even that Impala SS. I mean, I literally said in the title, like, it's hilarious because it's just, all that power going through the front tires is just, always nuts. And I see Double Strike's giving approval for the uploading clips from here into separate videos. Yeah, I think that'll be a fun thing to try. So thanks for the support there. And let me see. Jonas says, yeah, upload the snippets with shorts with pictures flashing. Yeah, that's the way to do it with shorts, is like information overload and make them super fast paced. Yeah, glad to see everyone's supporting that. Let me see. Getting down to the other member questions here. B. Mitchell says, anything to get out of being dragged in the dirt with YouTube's algorithm. Definitely. I think daily uploads certainly seems to help. So that may be the ticket, is just to do little snippets from this and do daily uploads, and maybe the algorithm will like me better. Let me see. I see Dave's suggesting you could do a monthly Q&A video using member questions. Yeah, so I mean, that's kind of what these are, with doing the Q&As. Is kind of how these are set up here. That'd be fun to kind of just do a compilation once a month. But I honestly think it'd be easier for me to just do little mini snippets and just do those, whenever I get a chance. I think that'd be kind of easier, because anytime I'm compiling stuff, then it gets longer and less people are watch it, because people only have so much time in their day. So I feel like maybe just doing quick little videos might be the interesting thing. We'll see if that actually works out or not. But I like the idea. So thanks for the support, everyone. Let me see. B. Mitchell saying how internal combustion makes a lot of sense whenever the temperatures are so low. Totally agree. Right now with EV tech the way it is, it's definitely the safer bet. Although it is nice, the one thing about the Mach-E is instant heat. Instant heat. You don't have to wait for an engine to warm up. We hop in that thing and instant heat. It's really nice to have, for sure. But let me see. I'm trying to get caught up. So Trent Carga says, I can see a luxury Durango as an Aspen. Look at Lincoln. Yeah, I think it works for Lincoln, and that's why Lincoln's doing really well. I think it's really smart of them. Let me see. Trying to get other member questions here. B. Mitchell says, no car handles as well as a rental, says PJ O'Rourke. That's true. What's the other comment? It's just that the fastest car out there is a rental car, because it's just everyone beats them like crazy. Let me see. Jazz is saying, my favorite Matt story is if you drove Beth's Mercedes to Pittsburgh and hit a pothole, the electrical system would go bad. Yep. And that's exactly every time we drove through the city. Once a year, we'd hit a pothole and it would make the entire electrical system go nuts. I don't know that. Both of Beth's Mercedes just hated downtown Pittsburgh. They'd throw a fit every time they were there. Two's hanging out. He's going to take off for the night here. Thanks for hanging, too. I know that was a long time ago, but getting caught up on the questions here. And Doug says he has the paint protection film. That's the way to go. Yeah, definitely agree. I love the PPF. It's so nice to have. It gives you so much more, less stress as far as, dings and scratches and all that. All right, so let me see some comments here against with everyone else's comments. And B. Mitchell says Volkswagen says we can't do blocky stuff, but they're rebirthing the Scout. Yeah, and also the Volkswagen Bus is another one. So I think that's, they're doing those as niche products, but I think as far as the mass market stuff where they need to worry about range, that's where they're going to be, doing the streamlined stuff potentially. And Truck and Car Guy says still debating on a Hemi or Viper manual swap for his Magnum. That would be so awesome. I'd say Viper if you can pull it off. That would be epic for sure. And if you do that, you should make a YouTube series on it because that would, I'm sure, almost probably pay for itself with ad revenue if you can build up an audience. Truck and Car Guy. Because that would be, I'm sure someone has probably already done it, but if someone hasn't, that would definitely be a big hot project on YouTube, I'm sure. And Raphael says Audi makes excellent wagons. I wish they'd sell them here. I mean, they sell the RS6 Avant, and I think the RS or the Audi A6 Allroad, right? And I think Mercedes sells one too, but it just, they're always so expensive. And Marco says that GTC for Lusso Ferrari, that is still one of my dream cars. Man, I love those things. I'm glad everyone else is in the wagon loving camp here. It's great. Jordan says, my husband and I are diehard sedan fans, Fusion owners. Did you ever review the Kia Cadenza? I've never done a Cadenza. I did the K900. That's the closest I've gotten to something like that, but never have done the Cadenza. Just another car where like no one bought them. And so from a review standpoint, no one's searching for reviews for those. So I just never bothered to try and hunt one down. I think they seemed like they were promising for sure. Let me see. All right. John Garguy says 9.5 seconds to 60. When I was talking about the Crosstrek, he says my mom's Smart 4.2 could nearly beat that. Yeah, it doesn't take much to beat a Crosstrek in a drag race, that's for sure. Let me see. I think a few people are signing off here, but Dom has joined in late. He says, have you talked about Porsche's recent choices? I have not talked about the Porsche stuff. I still need to look into that. I didn't have a chance to this past week. I'm going to be like crazy busy the next few weeks here with a bunch of different media drives I'll be going on. So it's going to be frantic for the last few weeks here in January, but I'm going to try and look into that Porsche stuff. And let me see. B. Mitchell says he'd tell Ford to build the Etzel. That would be fun to bring back. I don't know how well that would do, but it'd be fun to try for sure. He says telling Ford to build the Etzel is proof that I'm not a bot. Definitely no bot would ever know about Etzel, that's for sure. Let me see. Raphael says, I'm completely irrational. All cars are safe, so I don't think of safety. I pick a price range. Then it's about looks, sound, and driving feel. Fair enough. That's the great thing about cars. There's so many great choices to fit everyone's needs and wants and wishes. It's great. Joel says, thank you, Kyle, for the membership. What about Ram Diesel? What do you think? Do you think it would hurt the brand? I mean, I don't know. So as far as the diesel situation, what are they? I haven't been keeping tabs on the whole diesel thing with Ram. So I'm not in the loop on that to give an intelligent answer there. Let me see. Trent Carga says, see, the Yaris is smaller than the Bullet, so it's easier to hide in the basement there for two. All right, I think. Oh, sorry, Evgeny, I missed your other super chat there. I apologize, I missed that. He says, do you think Chinese EVs will overtake U.S. markets like a storm when they're available? Europe is big manufacturers already pretty scared of those. The big companies are scared of those. I don't know. I think Chinese EVs are going to have a more uphill battle in the States here than they do in Europe. Where I feel like people are a little less opposed to just Chinese tech in general than they are here in the States. So there's going to be some of that. I think it's going to come down. I think a lot of these Chinese EV companies are not really interested in even competing in the US market. I've heard some are, but I think like BYD, mentioned recently, they're not interested anymore. I'm not sure, but if it's just going to come down, I think the bottom line is money. I think, and also just competitiveness. I mean, look at how many people were against the Korean built cars for decades, and now they're putting out some of the best stuff, and they have good values, good warranties, all that. And so I think it's just, you got to just make a really good product and stand behind it and price it right. I think if the Chinese EVs undercut the competitors by a good margin, offered good warranties, good dealer networks and support, and made the best products in their segments, I think there'd be a lot more people that would give them a chance. But if it's just a cheaper vehicle, but it's crappy in all the other ways, or they don't have good support or something. I mean, so you got to have all those components. That takes a lot of money. VinFast is giving it a try here in Vietnam. From Vietnam, we'll see, how those cars do. It's just going to be an uphill battle for a lot of them. I mean, VinFast is a prime example of that, of everything being a struggle with, them trying to put the car together well, so it's not, this glitchy, mess of a vehicle like the first VF8s were. It's just, there's a lot there. So if the Chinese EVs can, outdo everybody else in every possible way, and the regulations in the States don't prohibit them or make them have too big of a disadvantage, then I could see them, gaining traction. But I think it's going to take decades. Look how long it's taken. I still get comments on my Hyundai and Kia videos, people being like, oh, that's junk, that are still living in the 80s and the 90s when Hyundais were junkier than they are today. I think some of them got a bad rap. There was still some genuine junk stuff back then from those brands, but I think, there was some decent stuff in the 90s at least. But regardless, there's still people in 2024 that are still thinking of Hyundai and Kia like they did in the 80s and the 90s. So you're going to have people that are going to hate Chinese EVs, even if they are the best thing in a couple of decades, for a long time. But I think, there will be some headway made if they can actually, make them, the best in all the ways, which is a challenge, obviously. So we'll see. But great question, Evgeny, and thank you so much for another super chat there. So this is, I think, the longest we've ever gone on a live stream. So I think a couple more member questions here, and then I'm going to sign off here as well. But so where were we? So Joel says, what do you think in April? Ford Mustang turns 60. Maybe they have a special package. Possibly, it might be some kind of little anniversary thing or something. But, Ford seems like they're a little less interested in doing the historical stuff as far as, going back to the original Mustang stuff. It seems like the new focus is the Dark Horse and, more modern Mustang heritage. So, I'm not sure if they're going to do something, but it'd be always fun to see. And I see, thank you, Gothrock, for chiming in. He does have a Continental, so I was wondering if he was here to chime in. He says all the turbo models are all-wheel drive. The 3.7 V6 is naturally aspirated with all-wheel drive. And he says his Continental is amazing. He loves it. So, okay, so I thought that was the case. Okay, so Saturdays, he knows his stuff. He says the Continental came in front-wheel drive and all-wheel drive with a twin turbo. The all-wheel drive will have a bump in power. So interesting. So even Lincoln, where people aren't trying to put down power perfectly well, even them, they were, I guess, limiting the power there. So that's interesting. Thanks for the info, Saturday. That's another one of those, normal cars that is probably very rare. A front-wheel drive twin turbo Continental. That'd be a fun one to track down and roast all 400 horsepower through the front wheels. That'd be fun. I'll have to keep an eye out for one of those. Thank you, Saturday, for the info. Now I've learned something new in this live stream, so thank you. And Jeremy Wang, thank you so much for the super chat there. If you have any questions, very briefly here before I sign off, definitely send a message over. But otherwise, thank you, Jeremy, for the support. And Garth Parker says the Navigator and Aviator are really nice SUVs. I just would rather have a car, and that's why he has the Continental there. And Brian, thank you so much for being a member for 8 months as well. I appreciate the support. And it's so great. I know some of these people have been members now. We're going to be coming up here on 2 years, I believe, here this spring. And I'm going to have to make a new badge for those that cross the 2-year market. I so much appreciate, all the support from Kyle and from Troy Carney gifting those memberships. And Jeremy's using his sticker here. There's a member for 20 months, one of the original members here, Jeremy. Thank you so much. And I'll have to get working on a new badge here for I believe it's April, as when we'll be having the 2-year anniversary for some of those members. And thank you so much, everyone, for all the support here. I think we've caught up here. So all right. Well, thank you so much, everyone who tuned in and continue to tune in. I still have 74 people here, even after the 2-hour mark. So thank you so much, everyone. It's been a great live stream. Hopefully you enjoyed it as well. Again, apologies, I wasn't able to get to any of the non-member questions, but just so many great questions here tonight, and hope you all enjoyed the live stream. I always love doing these every week. Stay tuned for the one next week, and I will see if I can work in a few of these little snippets here from the live stream as some dedicated videos here for those of you who want to relive some of these without having to dig through a 2-hour video. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching once again. Have a great week, everyone. Stay warm if you're in one of these snowy, cold states, and stay tuned for more great videos here. Got lots of good stuff coming here towards the end of this month here. Got some debuts and some new drives and stuff, so stay tuned for all that. But anyway, anyway, thank you all very much for watching. Have a great week, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.